So let's get started.
Yeah.
All right. So I did a little digging
Hmm.
and I saw that you had put that your literary beginnings started with majestic horse lords and seafaring adventures. Now your name is practically synonymous with
Mm.
spicy hockey romance infused with queer joy
Hmm.
and heat.
Hmm.
Walk us through the creative pivot. What
Yeah.
happened between those worlds, and what does the journey say about your growth as both a storyteller and a human?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's deep. That's a lot of deep and layered stuff. So yeah, I'd say my first love was always fantasy. I just loved
Mm-hmm.
escaping into fantasy worlds. So the Daring Horse Lords was it wasn't Lisa Frank, but it was that artist that did, how it would be like the super like space at the top that would go into like a mountainscape, and then it's like the animals, and then it's the under the sea, so you could get it where it's like dolphins leaping, or in this
Mm-hmm.
case it was a journal,
Really
you know what I mean, like
80s.
you could get it as
That 80s.
posters. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I would see those, and there was one that it was like a spiral bound notebook that had two black horses that are like running along a beach with like space and the forest and the water. And so I wrote a story about that, the cover of that journal, that you can just hook me
Yeah.
in that way. But fantasy was always my first love. The first books I started writing, like with a mind to maybe I could try and publish this, I was very
Mm-hmm.
firmly in the fantasy space with those. So actually, North is the
Mm-hmm.
Night, which just came out in December,
And
that
which I
was
love.
that was the third book I had ever written, and it was in that fantasy world, right? So I had a
Ooh.
draft of North is the Night 3
Mm-hmm.
years before any of my self-published stuff came to light. So like if that shows you how slow traditional publishing can work, like I was trying to get that published about a year before the pandemic hit. And then once the pandemic hit, and the world shut down, that's when I wrote Beautiful Things, which is the first thing I ever self-published. So it's like by the time I had
Ooh.
written Beautiful Things, I was already trying to get published and had written like 6 fantasy books. Um, so it's just kind of the weird world of publishing is,
Mm.
in the time it has taken one book to go through the traditional process, I wrote and published 10 things on my own. And so it's just like for
Damn.
me, yeah, for me it was the feeling of like, why wait? You just really,
Mm.
I really felt that call of just like, why am I waiting? A traditional publisher isn't going to buy this super spicy Jane Austen,
Mm-hmm.
why choose Regency book, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to publish it. So why am I waiting for validation, or why am I waiting for an agent to say yes? I'm just going to publish it. And then it just
That's,
started rolling.
that's what's
Um,
up.
yeah, but I think
So,
it was a journey.
so
Yeah, for sure.
So let me ask you this. Sports romance typically sticks to American staples like football and
Hmm.
basketball, but
Hmm.
you chose hockey.
Hmm.
What why that sport? Was it the
Yeah.
energy, the culture, or something more intimate? And were you a hockey fan before Pucking Around became the
Mhm.
hit it is now, or did the story come first and the fandom later?
Yeah, so hockey is actually the single largest subgenre of sports romance. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of things we could get into for the why of that. I tend to boil it down to racism, right? It's the racism
Hmm.
inherent in the sport of hockey, and it's the
Hmm.
racism inherent in publishing. That means
Hmm.
that white women dominate the market as authors of romance, and they also dominate
Hmm.
the market as readers of romance. And so
Hmm.
if white women are trying to tell stories for other white women about
Hmm.
sports, the safe space for them historically has been hockey, because even to this
Hmm.
day, hockey is 90% white. The
Hmm.
NHL right now is 90% white. Um, and so it's a safe space for white authors to write white stories for their white readership. And that's not what drew me in. That's not what drew me in.
Hmm.
Be very clear. Like my queer ass rolled up and was like, it doesn't have to be this way, right? It's like, I was like, if I read one more straight white hockey romance, I'm gonna lose it. So a lot of us have entered into the space where you see such growth in things like MM romance in the queer spaces. So it's like the players falling for each other, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a big space that has opened up for more diversity in the hockey romance space, more so than what you see in real fandom spaces of the actual sport of hockey. But you have amazing authors that are out there, like Alexandria House, Deanna Gray. Like there's so many that are, Ruby Rana, Tal Bauer, so many that are working to diversify the space of hockey romance. And I've wanted to feel like I could be a part of that too. So telling my queer stories, telling polyamorous stories, to just open up that space more and be like, if we're gonna all be reading hockey romance, like clearly we love hockey romance as a genre, let's diversify this space if we can. And so that's kind of what drew me in. And as far as me being interested in hockey, yes, tangentially, I never played hockey as anything more than like having fun in a friend's basement, that kind of thing, with rollerblades, But I grew up, I have a lot of family in Minnesota, so I grew up with family that was really connected with it. My mom's best friend from college, all 3 of her boys ended up trying to go pro. One of them did. So it's always just been kind of a culture I've been around. I've been to games, but there was nothing like I'm obsessed, must watch hockey. For me, it was seeing that the market was so hot at the moment I was writing it. The market was so hot for hockey romance. So I knew, especially here on TikTok, they're so ravenous for more content. So I knew if I could write something that was just a little bit unique, something they hadn't seen before, and pitch it to this hockey romance crowd that's really active on TikTok, as an indie author, I was like, they'll help me market this. Because they're so active here. And that's what happened, is you really saw I pushed my book as much as possible in front of the hockey romance TikTok crowd and had them help me pick it up and carry it, is really what happened with that. I was very lucky.
Well, with a lot of us that are Black, we do like Chicago Blackhawks, because I'm from Chicago. We do have a big Black crowd. It's just overshadowed. Like you were talking about racism, and it's always been more white culture centered. It's a big Black following. It's just we get overshadowed, because I love the violence of it all. It's one of my favorite things besides football. But I like to break down books. So when I do reviews on my videos, I really break them down. They call them theses of me reviewing books. But I have so many questions about Pucking Around, and I also want to get into North is the Night. Night is the North. Night is the North.
North is the Night. Yeah.
Because I had so many questions about that book as well.
Yeah.
So what Pucking Around does, it does something bold. It introduces a polyamorous relationship dynamic in a mainstream sports romance. And it doesn't shy away from emotional, societal, or sexual complexities. Polyamory is still a taboo topic for many, often misrepresented or fetishized. How do you approach writing this kind of relationship with the depth and humanity it deserves?
Yeah. Man, another great question. I feel like what was so, I was not the first author to write a Why Choose Hockey Romance, but I will say that from my position, I feel like mine is the one that blew up the largest. So it tends to get the most eyeballs on it at this point. For me, as someone who I've been very rabid in terms of my reader fandom or reader interest in Why Choose stories. So I, as a reader, loved reading them. But what you tend to see in the Why Choose genre is where those stories take place. The setting of where most polyamorous romances take place is on the margins of society anyway, because the most popular settings for Why Choose romances are things like magical. So it's like paranormal. It's mafia or some other kind of gang, motorcycle clubs. It's, millionaires with dark secrets. It's, it's people, it's not just your everyday, I see Jake at the store buying ice cream, And so what was so important, I think, about Pucking Around is that it was normal people. It was just everyday people. It's just, I have a job. I work for a
Mm-hmm.
hockey team. I'm not killing people and burying them in a yard. We're not
Mm-hmm.
assassins. We're not
Mm-hmm.
paranormal shifters. We're not in a gang.
Mm-hmm.
There's not other kinds of violence that then we also
Mm-hmm.
just happen to be polyamorous. Because why not have
Yeah.
these other taboo things? There's nothing
Yeah.
taboo about Jake Compton. He's like
Mm-hmm.
all star, perfect, pretty boy,
Mm-hmm.
and he has this thing that's, and so it's, I think it goes a long way to have like someone like Lily Gold does such a wonderful job with her polyamorous romances as well, of it's like, it's just three guys that live upstairs and the nanny they hire to help them. It's just, it's
Mm-hmm.
the normalcy of like, you could know us, maybe you do know
Mm-hmm.
us, and that's what I've loved about getting to meet polyamorous people that come to my events, or that they'll bring their
Mm-hmm.
polycule to my events, and it's just like, thank you. Like, we're just normal people. There's nothing taboo. We shop for groceries and our kids go to school, and it doesn't have to be a secret, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that's
Your
what I
main
try to
character,
do.
Rachel. Oh, I'm sorry. What was you about to say?
No, 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 no. Go on. My main character, Rachel.
Your main character, Rachel, is a physical therapist
Mm-hmm.
for the Jacksonville Rays.
Mm-hmm.
She's a career driven, competent, and navigating a high pressure male dominant space.
Mm-hmm.
But you also showcase her vulnerabilities emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
professionally, and sexually.
Mm-hmm.
Why was that important for you to highlight that duality in her character?
Yeah, I think well, number one, you just want to have, I feel like, complicated characters. It's
Mm-hmm.
really hard to write women in the current landscape of
Mm-hmm.
publishing.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about the bar, where the bar is in terms of women are largely who my readers are. So women
Mm-hmm.
reading about other women, like no one is
Mm-hmm.
more strict about women than other women, right? No one is more quick
Mm-hmm.
to tear a woman down than other women. And the bar
Mm-hmm.
that readers have towards women characters often
Mm-hmm.
feels just unjumpable, that
Yeah.
when you think about the male characters, and that was something that really upset me about a lot of the Why Chooses I was reading, is in a lot of the cases, especially with like early reverse harem, the men didn't even get
Mm-hmm.
POVs. So you weren't even
Mm-hmm.
getting inside their heads. They were very
Mm-hmm.
two-dimensional. It would just be like,
Mm-hmm.
I have gray eyes and a bad attitude. And you would see these readers
Fabio.
that's like, yeah. So, but it's like the readers, when it comes to men, these
Mm-hmm.
men that have no arc, no depth.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I begin and end a 3-book series, and all I know about him is gray eyes, bad attitude. And they're like, book boyfriend, he's my dream. But it's like, so I'm like, you need to lower your bar out of the basement. Like, these men need to
Mm-hmm.
be complicated. They need to have more personality and more arc. They need to
Mm-hmm.
have arcs that exist outside of her. So that's where with
Mm-hmm.
Rachel is a complicated character, number one, but she
Mm-hmm.
also lets the men be complicated too. And I think that matters. She
Mm-hmm.
lets them have ideas outside of her, relationships outside of her. It's like, I am not,
Mm-hmm.
I like to think of my women more as like catalysts. Like, they're the
Mm-hmm.
catalyst, they're the change agent that changes the
Mm-hmm.
dynamic of the other men. So without her entering the picture, the men may have gone down their paths the way they were going. She's a
Yeah.
catalyst. Whereas in a lot
Yeah.
of early RHs, like, she's the center. And without the center,
Mm.
the center must hold. Because it's like, if she disappeared, those men wouldn't stay together. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I really wanted to feel like this is a polyamorous unit where if something happened to Rachel, those men would stay together, right? They would, because
Mm.
there's something deeper that she catalyzed for them, if
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. And I feel like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's so much deeper than just, I have no personality and I'm just here to further her plot,
Yeah.
and that's where we're going. You know what I mean? So I try and be
Yeah.
careful with my women, and I try and make them, they tend to be more of a catalyst character. I don't want them to be the middle. I don't want them to be the total center of attention. I want them to just kind of enter a situation and stir shit up. If that makes sense, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
that
I
makes
get to
perfect
see what
sense.
happens as it unravels. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I like that. I like that. Then, okay, let's talk about the males.
yeah.
Then you add these three men,
Mm-hmm.
Jake, Caleb, and how do you pronounce his name?
Ilmari,
Lamari?
yeah, Ilmari Mars, yeah,
Ilmari?
yeah.
Each of whom brings their own energy.
Mm-hmm.
Jake has that history with Rachel,
Mm-hmm.
the mystery guy.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Caleb who brings heat and tension
Mm-hmm.
both ways. Um,
Yeah.
and Elmari, who he's giving us complex and brooding almost. That's
Mm-hmm.
my opinion. That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
How did you develop them as individuals while making sure the group dynamic felt authentic and emotionally complete?
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do that I've really leaned into with this series in particular is I like in the character drafting stage, I
Mm-hmm.
assign all of my characters a zodiac sign. And so I really leans into that with this one, that Rachel's constantly
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm a double cancer, and some people love it, some people hate it. I don't care. I'm going to keep
Mm-hmm.
doing it. I love it. So, but it's like for the men in particular, to make them feel, I wanted them to feel real. I wanted them to feel three-dimensional. So starting by assigning them a zodiac was a fun way for
Mm-hmm.
me to just start to touch into a little bit, so it's like Jake is a Taurus. And whenever I say
Mm-hmm.
that, people are like, of course, my God, if it's like loves his creature comforts, loves to be kind of the center of attention, doesn't like to be left out of things, doesn't, so you can see it's like, okay, so that's him.
Mm-hmm.
Mars is an Aries. So it's more of like
Mm-hmm.
independent, driven,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like taking no for an answer, like will, like is a fighter, is strong, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel being a Cancer is like, she can be tough on the outside or have that appearance of like, I'm a doctor, I take no shits. But inside, like I'm a Cancer. And inside, we just have a gooey little center and we just want to be loved. And we just, so that was a fun way is I
Mm-hmm.
would have the zodiac kind of help me inform who I wanted
Mm-hmm.
them to be and then how their
Mm-hmm.
relationships go together. Like even for my next book, that's been a big thing is the book that drops in September. It's a Pisces and a Capricorn. And so all of my readers have been like, oh God. Because like people that know that it's like that, like we are in for hurt. Like we are in for
Oh,
angst and we're in for trouble, right? Because a Pisces and a
oh,
Capricorn together is like that is going to be drama, you know. So it's
oh,
things like that they just make it makes it fun. But my
yeah.
big thing is with the men, I give them all POVs that matters,
Mm-hmm.
and I give them
Mm-hmm.
all arcs that are separate from
Mm-hmm.
her. So Ilmari,
Mm-hmm.
or if she's involved, but it's not she is not the arc, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
Jake and Caleb have their arc of kind of their relationship and them
yeah.
navigating who they are. Ilmari has the arc of him trying to hide an injury, and she comes in and
Mm-hmm.
helps with that. He's trying to qualify for the Olympics. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like they have things that they want and goals to
Mm-hmm.
achieve that are outside of her. And
Mm-hmm.
that matters too for making them complicated
Yeah,
individuals, I think. Um,
I love that.
yeah,
There's also the classic one night stand trope used
yeah.
earlier in the story, but you flipped it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of it being just a uh hot moment,
Mm-hmm.
it opens the door to deep emotional entanglement.
Mm-hmm.
And the sexual chemistry throughout the book is intense.
Mm-hmm.
Was it challenging to balance the steamy scenes with emotional depth, making sure sex added to the story instead of being a filler?
Yes. So a big thing that I did when I was thinking about, I really did my research. I've read a lot of hockey romances and I've read
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Why Choose romances. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I was going to make this the most marketable was the spice had to come early. Spice early,
Mm.
spice early and spice often. But when I was looking at it, you had the trouble of how could I get spice as early as possible onto the page and pucking around, knowing that I needed to develop out the relationships first. And that's where I got
Mm-hmm.
the idea to do the prequel novella for Jake and Rachel, the fact that they already had their spicy moment We already have
Mhm.
that connection. So when we get to
Mhm.
pucking around, we're hitting the ground running of she's already in the door with one of them. And
Mhm.
especially knowing that, the first couple chapters are front loaded with the first person she meets off the plane is Caleb. And she immediately is attracted to Caleb. That mattered too, that it couldn't be that she meets Jake first. She has to meet Caleb.
Mhm.
She has to have interactions with Caleb, multiple, right? So that's where he helps her off the balcony. Like there had to be
Mhm.
like, we have chemistry too. And this is undeniable.
Mhm.
So that when she meets Jake, it's believable that there's tension there of like, uh-oh, I like both of them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then Ilmari has to be brought in. So if I was trying to wait for the spice until like all three of them were involved or something, that's a
Mhm.
lot of pages, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that was really what I was trying to do is I used that novella to strategically front load a relationship so that
Mhm.
I could hit the ground running in the book.
Mhm.
It would be very easy to have spice quickly because I already have that
Mhm.
connection for her and Jake, you know.
Okay.
So that was
You
kind of
also, oh, I keep cutting you off. I'm sorry.
no, I said so that's
Also,
what I did.
all right. So you also introduce heavier themes like
Hmm.
attempted unaliving,
Hmm.
because you can't say certain words on here.
Yeah.
Alcohol abuse, depression.
Hmm.
These are serious topics. Was
Hmm.
incorporating these elements a way to ground the story in real world struggles and give your characters dimension beyond the romance?
Yeah, oh absolutely. I think it's so important that we're talking about these kinds of things. I think
Mhm.
a fluffy hockey romance doesn't have to be without its weight to it when you think of the characters
Mhm.
and you think of their motivations. Another thing that was really important to me is someone like Jake. Jake is very clearly coded to have
Mhm.
ADHD and
Mhm.
anxiety. And so
Mhm.
I've actually been through like a process of my own of kind of as an adult now being
Mhm.
diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety myself.
Mhm.
And so like
Mhm.
one of the things that came to light, but I was going like that was inspired because I was going through it with my son of we were having to get my
Mhm.
son diagnosed with ADHD, dyslexia, dysgraphia. We had to start him on medication. He also was a
Mhm.
little anxious ball of nerves. And it was like
Mhm.
going through that as his parent was such an eye-opening experience for me of being like,
Mhm.
I think I have it. And it's like I
Mhm.
didn't even realize. I thought as I was writing Pucking Around that I was doing honor to ADHD and anxiety for Jake in the way that it kind of looks in my son. But
Mhm.
really, what I realized without realizing it, because often the way ADHD in particular presents in men and women can be very different.
Mhm.
And once the book was published, I literally can't tell you how many women have told me I have never felt more seen than reading Jake. They said Jake
Mhm.
felt like reading, it felt like the inside of my own mind. And there's like I've never identified more with a character with ADHD than reading Jake. And I realized
Mhm.
like I gave him my ADHD. I gave him my version of racing thoughts,
Mhm.
quick panic spirals. Like the longest chapters in the
Mhm.
book are Jake's chapters because he thinks
Mhm.
every thought he's thinking. He immediately jumps to like worst case scenario of it's like they don't even want me, like that kind of thing of like constantly
Yeah.
doubting people's affection, like having that feeling of anxiety, not wanting to be left out, not feeling like he's not
Mhm.
loved enough.
Yeah.
And so it was like
Yeah.
it matters that this can be a fluffy hockey romance, but we have these heavier things. We have people living
Yeah.
complicated lives, and
Mhm.
that matters. That kind of representation.
Yeah. Okay, and we talk about the queer rep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Caleb and Jake's relationship grows into its own intimate bond within the dynamic.
Yeah.
And you treat it with so much respect.
Mm.
How much of your own queer identity
Mm.
informed how you wrote the connection and its evolution?
Yeah. So I think the Jake and Caleb storyline is very much a healing moment for me. I
Mm-hmm.
was so deeply in the closet up through even college. I was so deeply in the closet. I had so much self-shame,
Mm,
fear of myself and my own thoughts, right? My own twisted, dark, sinful thoughts, right? That kind of, I was
mhm,
raised evangelical, right? So that
mm,
was, I was raised to think that my proclivities were as bad as something like pedophilia, right?
mm,
My
mhm,
father pushed that into my mind that they're the same.
mm,
And so, as things happened in our church where things like that were revealed, in my mind, the
mm,
hate and the fear and the shame went so much deeper as I'm like, if he only knew that I was no better. And so,
mm,
the layers that I had to unpack in terms of hating and fearing myself were so deep. And what I was
mm,
able to do with Jake and Caleb is kind of give them the moments that I wish I had had with my friends growing up of like I
mm,
basically ruined every meaningful, close, meaningful female relationship of my life because I was constantly treating them like relationships. And then
mm,
we would have breakups that were devastating. And it's like it was only with perspective that I realized now that that's what I was doing. And so to
mm,
be able to give Jake and Caleb a friendship to lover arc that goes the way that
mhm.
I can only dream about now. You know, I can only dream of that
Yeah.
moment where my best friend would say, "Kiss me," and I could do it
Mm,
and it would be safe, you know?
mhm,
So even I get a lot of flack sometimes because I tend to write men and I write by awakenings for men. Number one, I love men so much and I love writing stories for men, but I feel like as a queer person, that has felt like my safest entry point to
mhm,
explore by awakening and curiosity, and I've done it through
mhm,
men at this point. Um,
mhm,
but it's very much a personal journey. Like each time I write a
mhm,
Friends to Lovers by Awakening, it's me healing something in me, right? And
mhm.
shedding away that pain and that all of that guilt that I carried and that shame. So yeah, it's very meaningful. And I feel like whenever people want, because you said like, do you want to know the author? And readers,
Yeah.
if authors are willing to share this kind of thing with readers, I think readers can be quick to judge and just be like, oh, like I've been told many, many times that I'm capitalizing on queerness and I'm just trying to make a buck because I write
Mm,
queer characters. And I'm like, the queer heart of me is
mm,
healing, is what I'm doing. It's not about the money, it's about saving my own life through writing stories that help me heal with the pain that I've been through. So
mm,
yeah, don't judge authors if you don't know us, if you don't know our
mhm.
stories, you know, for why we might be writing the stories that we're writing. Um, yeah.
This my podcast will always be a safe space for Black POC and allyship that is not performative.
Yeah.
My podcast has always been I am 10 toes down for my Black community. I am 10 toes
Hmm.
down for the POC community. I am 10 toes down for allyship that is not performative. So,
Hmm.
this is, and I say it all the time to a lot of indie authors.
Hmm.
Without them, they don't understand how they saved my life from PTSD, mental illness that I have that
Hmm.
almost took me out. So
Hmm.
I take my podcast and I take it seriously because this is my love letter to y'all because y'all saved
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So when I interview you guys, I want you all to be humanized.
Hmm.
I want your words, not the words of some podcaster or some influencer saying
Hmm.
they know you. I want it
Hmm.
from the horse's mouth. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing about who I am and what I do and why I do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so important. It's important to have these spaces. It's important that authors, not all authors are comfortable doing this kind of thing. Like
Mhm,
I'm an open book, you know, so it's kind of like ask me questions and I'll tell you. So that's a big thing too, is
mhm,
like if you see as my brand has grown, as you know, there've been like this controversy or that issue, a
mhm,
lot of times the noise becomes authors or booktubers or book talkers like talking to each
mhm.
other, like exactly like you said, as if you know me. And
Yeah.
to me, it's like all you had to do was ask me. before you made a
Yeah.
45-minute takedown of me, or before before you spun off and did multiple videos about me, at no point did you ask me.
Yeah.
That's all you had to do. Because I'm very open, right? All you did was email me and
Yeah.
say, hey, do you want to do this? And I
Yes.
said, yes. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, yeah, it's a very interesting world to be in now, where it's like that the door is open if you choose to go through it. And you could know me if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But a
Yeah.
lot of them choose to not do that.
We're gonna get into that because a lot of people
Yeah.
are woefully ignorant.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But Rachel, as the woman in this relationship, gets the
Mhm.
brunt of public scrutinization,
Yeah.
judgment. She's shamed and sexualized in ways men are not.
Yes.
Was that dynamic something you set out to critique intentionally? And how does it reflect the bigger message you're trying to send readers about gender, power, and desire?
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It mattered to me that it was the feeling of like, if it was Jake that was the middle of a harem, that kind of thing, it'd be like, he's a playboy. Oh, he gets all the girls. Like, you can see it all the time of like, men are held to such different standards when it comes to sex, sexuality, living polyamorous lifestyles. Like, it's been really interesting just, seeing more people come out and talk about whether it's coming out in their queer journeys or coming out in a polyamorous journey, that the critiques are completely different when it comes to men sharing that story versus women sharing that story. And so, yeah, the fact that you have there's such a culture in sports, I think, still in professional sports, that men are allowed to have multiple sexual partners. They're allowed to run through marriages like they're changing underwear. They're allowed to have, 13 children by 9 women, all of these things, and it's like, and that's just like, we're not batting eyelashes. But if a woman's in that position, it's like, boo, let's let's give her all the labels, all these negative labels. So it was definitely something that I was thinking about as I wrote this, that Rachel's like, I don't want this. Like, I want to just live my life and have people not care how I live it. Wouldn't that be the dream? Like, that I can just do what I want to do and love who I want to love. And there's not a double standard, and no one cares because it affects them in no way, like, just let me live. Just let me live. So yeah, definitely it was in my mind.
I always say, it's a saying, what you say don't make me shit. It doesn't. People have so many fucking opinions, like they have assholes.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the queer, polyamorous, or especially being a woman, or being a POC woman, or being a Black woman, there's always a stereotype connected to us.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because people are woefully ignorant and they do the shit on purpose to get a reaction of, see, they're so emotional. See what I mean? And it just irritates me so much, especially in today's climate. This is not 1920. This is 2025.
Yeah.
And people are stuck in this time warp of not understanding there's polyamorous relationships, there's queer relationships, there are interracial relationships, there's a such thing as Black love. This, and people just tend to, no, not in my books. No, not my characters.
Or even something
as
simple, as choosing not to get married. Like, and so, because like in one of my books, it's the 3 of them, they choose not to get married. None of them marry, because it's like, unless it's legal for me to marry both of you, I'm marrying neither of you. And I've had readers that are just like, I wish they would get married. And it's like you can't, like, even that hurdle, that it's just like, there's nothing wrong with a partnership that is a partnership in every way. You just don't have some legal, it's like some piece of paper that says, I legally approve stamp, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, no matter what it is. Yeah. No matter what it is.
People give more leniency to Wall Street crash outs than they do normal everyday people.
Yeah. Just living their unbothered lives. Yeah.
So you hold degrees in political science, philosophy,
Uh-huh.
peace studies, and African studies.
Yeah, well, so I have my PhD in political science and peace studies. My emphasis
Mm.
was African politics, so sub-Saharan
Mm.
Africa. So I don't have a separate degree in African studies, but
Yeah, yeah.
that was my area of expertise, and that's what I
Okay.
taught was like modern African politics, sub-Saharan Africa, in sub-Saharan African
Mm.
politics, that kind of thing.
It's a very unique blend of studies.
Yeah.
How do these fields, especially African studies,
Mm-hmm.
and your time living in
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Malawi, echo through the themes and values in your work, even in your spiciest and fanciful titles?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the number one thing is I was very lucky as a kid. My dad was a Delta pilot, and so we traveled a lot. So
Mm.
I think the first way to answer your question, another great question by the way, is I've lived and traveled to so many places around the world.
Mm-hmm.
That means that my characters being as diverse as they are and the worlds being as diverse as they are is just a reflection of my life, how I've lived it. And I've just been very blessed that I've been able to live in South Africa, Malawi, Japan. I did a year of my undergraduate degree program was at a university in Japan. I've traveled so widely. I've lived so widely. So it means that the diversity is genuine, right? In the sense of it's like, it's just how I see the world. I see the world. The world is small, even as it's big, is how I feel, having been to so many places on it. Like the more you travel, the more you realize this is a very small rock that we're all on together, And so that's
Yeah.
number one thing is that I think it just really inspires a feeling of I write the world that I have seen around me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in particular, the work that I have done, specializing in modern African politics, I've had to do a lot of deep and heavy work in things like critical race theory, colonialism, anti-colonialism, development studies, looking into race and racism and how that plays a part in politics, different cultural issues, the idea of religion and how that play. Like you can't talk about sub-Saharan African politics without being ready and able to talk about religion and how that intersects with politics, culture, deep cultural practice. My dissertation was on trying to change the cultural practices that allowed for child marriage. That Malawi had instituted a national ban on child marriages, but that had to filter down to the ground level where you had all kinds of cultural practices that made it not only acceptable, but advisable, desirable to sell off your girls as quickly as possible, as young as 8 and 9 into child marriages. And so you have, all of these things, they really enforce the way I think about cultural issues, political issues, the way I think about just storytelling, having been all over the world and seen and heard so many different stories with fantasy in particular as well. My love of mythologies, local folklore, that kind of thing, that all gets pulled in to the kind of fantasies I enjoy and the kind of fantasy stories I like to tell. So it's, I don't know, it's life in the living of it. Like just getting to have
Yeah.
traveled so much, it just means that my life is just kind of a constant swirl of
I can
experience.
see how your experience has um ha- it you could see it in your writing. The
Hmm.
social political topics that you put
Hmm.
in your writing. I can see that.
Hmm.
Listening to you talk, I'm seeing the words and I'm
Hmm.
just like, okay, now I get it. Now I get
Hmm.
it. Okay, I get it now. So
Yeah.
you're also a trained percussionist.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you this.
Hmm.
Does the rhythm of drums or musical structure shape your sentence flow, your
Hmm.
pacing, or your emotional beats and storytelling? And does music serve as a translator or bridge between your inner world and the stories you bring to life?
God, you ask good questions. I've never been asked a question like that, but yet I'm sitting here being like, yes. Like I think I've never
I
been
told
asked
you
that
I do a
question
lot
like
of
that.
research on you authors when y'all come up here and I say,
Yeah.
hey, if I invite you to the podcast, I'm gonna do research.
You're going to do your work. That is such a good question. So I think I'll take it in two parts. So the second part of that was about how music informs my storytelling more broadly. Absolutely. Absolutely. The earliest phase of every project for me is feverishly putting together playlists. And then when I'm in the midst of doing that project, it's like that's all I can listen to. I listen to that playlist. I listen to it while I'm cooking, while I'm brushing my teeth, while I'm driving. It's just like I'm in the world of that music. And if I hear a song that it's like I'll literally have to stop everything. If I hear a song that, whether it's the music that's pulling me in, the lyrics combination, I've had those moments where I'm just like, like I have to stop. I have to add it to the playlist. So absolutely, music is a huge, huge inspiration. There are scenes that I very intimately connect to certain songs. There are characters that get intimately connected to songs. But the first part of your question was so freaking good, of my understanding of rhythm translating to the rhythm of a scene. That is so clever. Because you can see it. You can see that idea of like a natural sense of tempo playing over into the beats with things like banter. Especially, I love a good banter scene, and banter requires such a certain tempo to it. Yeah, I think it could also be the reason why I don't like listening to audiobooks of my own books. I don't listen to them, because to me the tempo is so ingrained in my mind, and the audiobook narrators never get it right. You know what I mean? Because they're doing their interpretation of it. So for me to listen to them do a banter scene, in my mind all I can think is they're doing it wrong, because the tempo is so specific in my mind. That's a really good question. But I think, yeah, you just helped me understand why I don't like my own audiobooks. And it's the issue of tempo. It's the tempo issue.
When I saw that it said that she was a percussionist, I was thinking like, let me go back and read some of her books. So I read Pucking Around, and of course I'm almost done with Night is North.
Yeah.
But I was reading it and I was thinking of it from a musician's standpoint. Like, people always talk about how they can see notes. People, they can see music. They don't read it, they see it. People talk about their visual learners, and some people are, they have to have the page in front of them. But I wanted to know, like, what scale do you hear? What beat that flows through you when you're like typing, and even if the music isn't playing, it's playing in your head, you're like, yeah, so that I try to think of a question that revolves around that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I've always pictured myself as having a very cinematic imagination, but that is absolutely part of it too. The sound, the tempo, the speed of the conversation, the pacing of the scene and everything, and how you can almost imagine it being as much as you can see a scene in written words, you can see it in a form of sheet music as well, of the patterns of speech and everything. So that's really cool. I hadn't quite thought of it that way before.
So let's talk about From His Grace the Duke in the historical romance Regency to Whiskey and Sin in the Omegaverse, and now Night is the North, a mythic dark epic fantasy. Your range is massive. Do you adapt your writing voice per genre, or is there a through line that makes your work undeniably yours, no matter the setting?
Yeah, so the first several books that I wrote them in third person past. And it was with That One Night. So my 3 Regency books and Whiskey and Sin, those are all done in first person past, as was the first draft edition of North is the Night was also in third person past. So once that sold, I actually had to go through and I changed it to first person present, because it really was That One Night is the little novella that goes with Pucking Around. That One Night is the first time I ever attempted to write in first person present. And it just feels like it unlocked something in my brain, like it unlocked something in my voice. So even as I love my Regency series. I love Whiskey and Sin. Whiskey and Sin is my favorite thing that I've ever written. And I love reading third person, and I still do. I feel like something got unlocked when I started writing in first, and I don't know that I'll ever go back. The way that I'm allowed to have a different level of intimacy with my own characters in first person compared to third. Now, sometimes it gets frustrating because sometimes there's just a scene that I'll visualize and it'll be like, I want this to be in third. So it's like sometimes you get frustrated that you're like, I made this bed, now I'm lying in it because it has to be in first. So it makes you have to tell the story in a specific way because it has to work for first person present. But yeah, so I do have in my catalog, the first 4 things in my catalog are still third person past, which includes the Regency books. I still think the voice is there. The voice of Emily is there. The kind of cinematic, really trying to put you in the scene feel that you get with one of my books is there. But you do have that difference in voice that you'll see with my first 4 books compared to everything that has come since and everything that will come being in first.
So in Whiskey and Sin,
yeah,
the person is one of the individuals are a person of color.
Yeah.
Is black?
He's black. Yeah, Silas is black.
He's black.
It's fictional. So I don't use the term African American because there's not an America for it, but he is black. Yeah.
Okay. We see a black male character at the heart of a queer omniverse story. No, you can't beat a queer omniverse story. But as a white author, how do you approach writing characters of color and queer characters with complexity, avoiding reduction or fetishization, especially in genres that often miss the mark on intersectional representation?
Yeah, it's something that I've learned and I've grown as an author. I'm not going to say that I've done it well every time. I've learned so much. I've learned so much each time I have a character that I do that is a non-white character or a character that has elements of queerness to them that I'm having to really try and think about or unpack. Even things with the neurodiversity, like I said with Jake, I realized I wasn't actually representing Jake with presentation that fit what most typically looks like in men. I gave Jake like a woman's version of ADHD, right? Because I have all these women that were like, I've never felt more seen, and it's just like, oh, I did that. So there's things like that it's a learning process. I think the number one thing that I do when I write non-white characters, especially if they're a main POV character, if I'm going to be inside their head, living as them and seeing the world through their eyes, I think the most important thing is finding the humanity in every character, right? Of every character I do, they're a person first. And this goes to the queerness aspect too, of people being like, you're writing men's stories. They're a person first. And so when you're reading Silas, you might identify with him being black, but you're also going to identify with his anxiety. You're going to identify with his recovery process. You're going to identify with him being jaded, with him not being trusting, with him having very good reasons why he doesn't trust people and wanting to move past that. Women can read him and identify with him just as non-white people can read him and identify with him. When you see this of readers just being like, oh, I just can't identify. It's like, bullshit. People are people. Connect to them on a personal level. The color of their skin doesn't have to match yours. Their sex doesn't have to match yours. Their sexual preferences don't have to match yours. For you to be able to see the humanity of them, see the worthiness of them getting to have a story that's on the page, right? And so I try and lead, do no harm. You try and lead with do no harm, and the humanity. The humanity of these characters shines through brighter than anything, brighter than any possible intersectional identity they have. That's what matters most to me, right? But yeah, I really do try and I take it incredibly seriously. I always have sensitivity readers, especially if they're
Mm-hmm.
a. Now, this is the thing, because I just said especially if something I have learned in my journey is I need to be having sensitivity readers, even if the main characters aren't not white. So I paid to have sensitivity readers. I have paid to have sensitivity readers on every project where I needed those sensitivities to be read for. But for example,
Mm-hmm.
Talking Around, I did not pay to have sensitivity readers for that book. And I should have, because
Mm-hmm.
things were caught in that, even in the way I represented side characters. Things were caught in that if I could go back, I would change it. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but that's me learning the lesson of you should always have them, like every
Mm.
project. Because I write as diversely as I do, I should always have them regardless of my
Mm-hmm.
projects. And so
Yeah.
that's something I'm taking very seriously as I've moved forward. And like every project
Mm-hmm.
since, I have had them. Um,
Yeah.
but that's a learning thing, right? Of
Yeah.
me realizing gaps in my knowledge, or realizing gaps in my representation, sometimes how I'm representing characters that I could do better and I
Mm-hmm.
should do better. um, and I'm committed to that, right? So
Yeah.
I take that seriously, of working with sensitivity readers and listening to them when they're giving me their advice,
Mm.
right? Because we see sometimes authors don't always do that, and then it comes out later that it's like,
Yeah.
we told you to edit that out and you didn't. It's like
Yeah.
it takes
Between the
processing.
racism, sexism, and the fucking homophobia,
Mm.
I'd be ready to flip everything over.
Yeah, yeah. But you learn. I think a big thing that I had to learn, which is so important, is the default of whiteness. I didn't
Mm.
realize until I was an author, I didn't realize how deep that went. And I
Mm-hmm.
really admire some of the authors that are out here trying to fight that, where every single character, if they make it on the page, their race is identified. Because it's like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to let you fall into the gap of default of whiteness, because that's happened
Yeah.
in my hockey series in particular. I had a lot of people really upset with Colton Morrow in particular. So he's one of the main characters in book 3, but he's
Mm-hmm.
such a minor character in the other books that I never identified him physically. I think, other than, I think I said he had like close cropped hair. In my mind, he was always black. He was never not
Mm-hmm.
black, but I never
Mm-hmm.
described him well enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so then readers are like, who is this black guy that's here now? And I'm like,
Ah.
but in my mind, but it's just like, you learn.
Yeah.
I know now. Like, I know
Mm-hmm.
now that I have to be thinking about those things clearer, and I have to be clearer with
Mm-hmm.
my descriptions to combat
Mm-hmm.
the default of whiteness that most readers fall
Mm-hmm.
into. Um,
So
yeah.
the published industry still struggles
Hmm.
with performative inclusion.
Yeah.
If you had 3 minutes to
Hmm.
speak honestly and publicly to
Hmm.
publishers, editors, readers about what true allyship to the Black and POC author community looks like,
Hmm.
what would you say?
I think, oh my God, I think the biggest thing that you start with is you just want to like scream, "You're not listening!" Like, you're not listening. Like, there's a difference of like listening to understand. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can listen, be like, "I'm listening," but are you understanding? And that's different, right? Like, I heard
Mm-hmm.
I heard a guy explain it with something related to politics. Is he was like, "I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you." And those are two completely different things, right? So you can
Mm-hmm.
have people explaining why diversity
Mm-hmm.
in publishing matters. We can sit here till we're blue in the face and explain why we need more queer stories, BIPOC stories,
Mm-hmm.
why we need publishers to champion BIPOC authors and put just as much weight behind their stories when it comes to marketing, right? Like, the Tracy Dion example is so perfect, of like, her fandom took her to the top. The publishers were doing fuck all to help her. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that it's
Yeah.
just like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
You have this meteor that you could be shooting into the sky, but she's going to get there with her fandom because you can't be
Yeah.
bothered, you know? And so it's just like, ugh, they keep saying they're listening, but they're not understanding, right?
Yeah.
And so until they're willing to understand, we're going to be falling into that trap of, I can keep explaining it to you. I can't
Mm-hmm.
understand it for you. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we've come a long way. Like silver linings that I'm seeing is
Mm-hmm.
because so many amazing indie authors have been able to rise up and build these fandoms for themselves and make traditional publishers pay attention to them. Like me with my super queer, super spicy, why
Mm-hmm.
choose hockey romances? Traditional publishing
Mm-hmm.
would not have touched these even 5 years ago. But because
Yeah.
indie space has become this ginormous world where it's like the
Mm-hmm.
money is clearly here. Do you want a piece of my success? Right? Because that's kind of the position that a lot of us indie authors have been in, is we've been able to go to these traditional publishers and be like, I can do it without you. So you can
Yeah.
either take a piece of my success or take nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want some
That
money
part.
or no money? You know? And so
Mm,
it's,
that
you can
part.
see the needle moving a little bit where queer authors doing polyamorous representation, like
Mm-hmm.
I've loved, I feel like you can see the needle moving with like monster romance, because so much about monster romance is inherently queer. And so to
Yes.
see my monster romance author friends getting end caps at Barnes and Noble, I'm like, this is different. This is different than
Mm-hmm.
it was even 5 years ago, that we're able to
Yeah.
push into these spaces and be recognized. But I do think we're a ways off yet in terms of, are they listening and are they actually understanding?
That part.
It feels like we're not all the way to understanding yet.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. So, have you always seen yourself as an ally, or was there a specific moment that shifted your worldview and pushed
Mhm.
you to take public stances, especially with when those stances may come with backlash?
Yeah. I do you know the Enneagram system? The
Mm-mm.
Enneagram is kind of like, Enneagram is like, oh, what's your personality, like personality mapping or personality type.
Okay. Okay.
So there's the one that it's like the, I'm an NJNV or like whatever.
Yeah.
So Enneagram is like, oh, numbers 1 through 9. And then it's like you can lean towards one number, but then you can kind of be between
Mm-hmm.
numbers, whatever. So my Enneagram is a one wing two, and that's called the
Mm-hmm.
social activist. So part of me wants to think like, maybe this was always just in my personality, that I just
Mm-hmm.
gravitate towards, I have very strong sense of like justice and fairness. I really get like upset if things aren't fair, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and not just about me. Like if I can hear someone else's story and be like, that's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fair
Yeah.
that happened to you. Ooh, it gets under my skin. Like I really care
Mm-hmm.
about justice and I really care about fairness. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think for me, what really sparked a different kind of journey, I was going in one direction, and the thing that very much pivoted me was a single moment. I'll probably cry retelling it. It was Thanksgiving break. I was in college. It was Thanksgiving break, and I was flying up to my family for the holiday. And so
Mm-hmm.
because my dad was a pilot, as I mentioned, I got to like fly for free. You get those flight benefits. So here I
Mm-hmm.
am, a single young college girl
Mm-hmm.
flying alone.
Mm-hmm.
I got a first class seat. I'm sitting on the plane by myself, traveling the country all by myself, getting a college education on a scholarship that I won through
Mm-hmm.
my merit. And I read an article from the New York Times. It was during the time when Malala was doing her reporting and things from Pakistan and talking about the
Mm-hmm.
reality of girls getting education in Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
But so this story was about girls that were basically living like wild dogs, and they were roaming from village to village on the outskirts of villages, hiding from their own families.
Mm.
The mothers and the sisters would come out and bring them clean clothes when they could, and would leave them food where they could, but they were being hunted by the men in their family because they were daring to get an education. The men did not want them to be educated. And so I sat there as like junior year in college, had like my road paved to getting the education that I wanted. And I'm sitting here thinking that like right now on the other side of the world, they're being hunted because they want to learn to read. And I'm
Mm.
sitting here in this position of privilege reading about them being hunted.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I broke down. And in that moment, because I wasn't planning to go to grad school in that moment, but it was in that moment on that plane that I was like, I'm going to honor these girls that I will never meet. I'll never meet them. But
Mm.
whatever position God or whoever you want to think has put me in this position, I don't have the barrier they have. And I'm going to go
Mm.
all the way. I'm going to go all the way for
Mm.
these girls and for every girl who has wanted this. And so I went and I got 2 PhDs, and it was
Mm.
because of them, right? That's like, I'm going to do
Mm.
something to better the lives of women and girls. Um, and I'm going to do what they couldn't do. And
Mm.
it mattered to me that I did that. So that really was a big turning point for me.
Mm.
And since then, I've dedicated a lot of my life and my time, my former profession, to educating on these issues.
Mm.
Like ringing the alarm bells when and where I can of like, we're going down a path we don't want to go down because this is the result. This is the result. Girls being hunted is the
Mm.
result. It wasn't always that way in Pakistan. Pakistan was very forward thinking and very modern,
Mm.
and women were in all kinds of career fields and were getting advanced degrees. It was not
Yeah.
always that way. You can slide back, and that's what we're seeing actively in this country as well. Is
I was
we
just about to say that
go
the
back?
Handmaid's Tales is really alive and kicking.
Yeah.
Um, what does being an ally actually look like in the literary world when no one's watching? Not the social media version, but the backstage version. What does
Yeah.
that really look like?
Yeah, I think for you run into the worry of kind of like what you had mentioned of the performative of
Mm-hmm.
is your allyship performative or not, and that's where I really take issue with other white authors writing diverse stories and
Mm-hmm.
then doing nothing to promote diversity otherwise. Like, where are you? Where are
Just.
you? Where are your recommendations for non-white authors?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't they on your tours? Why is
Mm-hmm.
every person on your tour another straight white lady? Like
Yeah.
doing straight white lady romance. What, like, we see you. We see you, and it doesn't sit well of this feeling of like you can't just make money off of people's stories or their identities and then do
Mm-hmm.
nothing to actually uphold those communities. And like, because for me, where my resentment gets, where I get really frustrated is, I mean, some of what I went through, right? Where they were trying to cancel me, they were burning my books, right? So it's like these
Yeah.
MAGA supporters, and they tend to have the same 5 to 15 authors on their shelf behind them, right?
Yep.
Like the same 5 to 15.
Mm-hmm.
I've met several of those authors. They have told me to my face how brave I am. They've told me how inspiring I am and how much they admire me for my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to be like, where the fuck are you? Because at this point, I'm just one more queer CUNT, right? That's how they're treating me now. Like, they don't want to hear from me. I'm not moving their needle at all. They're just blocking
Mm-hmm.
me because now it's like,
Mm.
who's the crazy queer one? But it's like, where are you? You identify
Yeah.
as straight and you're white and they're reading you. You're on all their bookshelves and you're
Mm-hmm.
slinking to me in the shadows telling me that you support what I'm doing and you think I'm an inspiration and you think I'm brave. Where are you? And so that's
Yeah.
really been frustrating for me. Like what you're saying, like with the behind the scenes. Don't
Yeah.
come to me behind the scenes. And so it's just like, it's very frustrating, right? Of like, oh,
Yeah.
I so admire that you're taking the bullet I'm too afraid to take. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you that they're burning your
Yeah.
books, but I'm going to sit here and do fuck all. And because it very much is a feeling of like, if not now, when? We are on the absolute precipice of, if this goes
Yeah.
further, we're going to spiral into a dictatorship.
Yeah.
If not now, when? And if not you, then who? Like,
Exactly.
if not you, then who? And so that's very frustrating for me, is feeling like there are so many authors that I know from the behind the scenes how they feel.
Yeah.
And I know that they're donating to causes. And I know
Yeah.
that they're dissatisfied, but they're too afraid to speak out. And it's just like,
Yeah.
if
It's
not you, then
unfortunate.
who? If not you, then who?
Yeah.
And it's very
Um,
frustrating.
I do want to say I see a lot of new people that have come in here.
Yeah.
This platform, once again, is for indie Black authors, traditionally published Black authors, POCs, and allies.
Yeah.
True allies, for real. I cuss, I drink, and I say what's on my mind. And I am so curious that I've always got a question for an author because I want to hear their voice.
Yeah.
But I want to also tell you guys that I just came in. It is National Black Author Day.
Yes.
So if you are a white reader, if you are a POC reader, if you're a Black reader, a queer reader, find your nearest indie traditional Black author and purchase their book today.
Yeah.
All right? Today.
Yeah.
But next question.
And Black
When you're
bookstores,
white
Black-owned indie bookstores. There's so many amazing
Exactly.
Black-owned indie bookstores that then are pushing Black author excellence. Love it. Yeah.
Exactly. And which I'm going to talk to y'all about after this interview because I have some recommendations for Black
Yes.
bookstores.
Yeah, good.
But when
Share
your
that with
white
me in
peers,
email. Will you share that with
Huh.
me, your list? Because I have a running
most
list that I
definitely.
keep, but share your list with me too, because so then I can share it.
Most definitely. Most
Yeah.
definitely. When your white peers get uncomfortable or push back against inclusive policies
Yeah.
or practices, how do you hold the line without losing your own peace and integrity? Because it's exhausting. And I know it is.
Yeah, I think the thing that I have turned to, it's like, it's kind of like, I said what I said. I said what I said. The crazy thing has been, I have been saying this, like we went through a whole thing where you asked me about my background and my life. I have been saying this since I started my author platform. I have not been shy. I've been saying this. It's like, you're just only now tuning in. That's fine. But I said what I said. And I think the big thing that I've been doing at this point is honestly just humor. I'm in a very, I'm in a privileged position being white and speaking to my white detractors, because they're all white. They're all white women, like we said, with like the same 10 to 15 authors on the shelf behind them. We know who they are, and we know who they're reading, and we know what they're about. They just want an escape, right? They want me to shut up. They just want an escape. I've been turning to humor, and that has helped me keep my sanity, right? So the fact that they were like so pressed, they were so pressed about me saying that I was a doctor. So I'm just kind of like they're really upset about that, because how dare I? I'm not a real doctor, even though the term doctor originated with non-medical doctors, right? Medical doctors took the term doctor to legitimize their practice. Anyway, so I've just been doing things like making funny videos of me dancing in my doctoral scrubs and just poking fun, because it really gets absurd. The amount of the cognitive dissonance is absurd.
It
And so it
is.
really becomes difficult of me feeling like I'm not going to change their mind. I'm not going to. And I feel like at this point with my platform, me sharing the kinds of things that I've shared when I talk about things like white person's right to comfort, I've done quite a few videos on that, and that's really what we're seeing when these white readers are made so uncomfortable, or white authors, because many of them were authors that dragged me as well. White readers and authors being so uncomfortable. Um,
Mm,
that is a tool of white supremacy, right? And we need to
yeah.
understand that we've been trained. We've been trained
Mm,
to uphold our own right to comfort. And right to comfort is a way that women in particular hold the line of white supremacy. And
mm,
if we want to take it in a slightly different direction, Christian patriarchy, right?
mm,
And so I don't see my position as like, I'm not going to fix them and I'm not going to change them. But what I can do is speak enough about it to people that are receptive to what I'm saying. And maybe
mm,
they're the ones that it's their sister, it's their mother, it's their
mm,
coworker, and they can have a different kind of relationship, right? The parasocial dynamic that I have going with my audience, I'm not
mm,
going to demagify someone,
mm,
but I can use my platform and I can speak out and I can have people be like, I've never heard of you before. And they can tune into what I'm saying and the message can spread that way. You know what I mean? So
mm,
when I feel like this is hopeless, like when I feel like
mm.
I'm never going to demagify anyone, I just kind of recenter as well and just be like,
Mm,
that's not my goal, I don't think. My goal is
yeah.
to still be the ally that I can be, represent the way that I can, spread the
Mm,
knowledge how I can. It's being received
mm,
and
mm,
it will spread out. Whether it's received directly by someone MAGA and they're like, "Oh, I've changed my
mm.
mind." Like I don't think that's happening, but it
No,
doesn't mean the information's not getting out there, you
no,
know?
no.
Um,
So,
yeah.
can I ask you, are you a feminist?
Yeah,
Do you
absolutely.
consider yourself a feminist? Do you know
Yeah.
what a womanist is?
A womanness?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I've heard that term. A womanness.
Okay. A womanist is a black feminist, and it's a movement which opposes sexism in the black community and
Mm-hmm.
racism throughout the feminist community.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a womanist. You're
Mm-hmm.
a feminist.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand um, that when it comes to POCs and black women,
Mm-hmm.
the aspect of being directly adjacent to feminism um, or something else entirely,
Mm-hmm.
and have the world treat all of us like shit, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much. Take
Yeah.
away our bodily autonomy,
Yeah.
take away our decision making,
Mm-hmm.
take away all these things. How do you feel as someone who has a degree in political science,
Mm-hmm.
has worldly knowledge of just women around the world being taken for granted
Mm-hmm.
and not seen as a person but an
Mm-hmm.
object?
Mm-hmm.
How do you, as an author and as a academia
Mm-hmm.
individual,
Mm-hmm.
how do you make sure purposely that
Mm-hmm.
you inject in your stories, even though it's fiction, a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of reality when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to being a woman?
Yeah, I think, my gosh, I think there's a lot of different ways to unpack that. I think, one, I should say, when I say that I'm a feminist, that's with the full understanding that there
Mm-hmm.
are different forms of feminism, right? So in particular,
Mm-hmm.
I am very against white feminism, right? So because that's its own brand of thing. So I would not call myself a white feminist by any stretch.
Yeah.
There's so much harm that has been done by the white feminist movement to the non-white women, right,
Mm-hmm.
right, womanist community, like you said. So
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I think any anything that I attempt to do with the women that I write in my books, it matters to me the idea of women can be anything, women
Mm-hmm.
can choose anything, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
idea of like women can choose to get married And that's valid. Women can choose not to get married. Women can choose to have kids, to not have kids. Women can choose to breastfeed or not breastfeed. Like, so all of these different things, like women can choose to work, not work. They can have high powered jobs. They can work in hockey, right? So this idea of like, I'm going to work in a male dominated sport, right? And it's like, I'm here. I'm just as qualified for this job. Put me in, coach, you know, like, or I am the coach, right? As we're starting to see. I really think it's this idea of breaking down any sense of what a woman's role is.
Yeah.
And that whatever my woman characters are doing on the page is valid. And whatever their dreams are is valid. And whatever they hope to achieve is valid. And so seeing those kinds of representations matters. With queer identities, body positivity, kink and sex positivity, showing I have a range within my women. Or even like Rachel is fun because she is a range in and of herself, what she likes in the bedroom, owning that, and showing women in more dominant roles in the bedroom. That has meant so much to me. I can't tell you how many readers have come up to me feeling so much joy, or the fact that they're coming up and saying like that reading a character like Tess is, you know, she's a plus size woman, very sex positive, kinky, loves playing with toys, right? All these things. I have had so many women and their partners thank me for that book in particular, because that's just an MF. So it's just a two-person dynamic. To say how reading a two-person dynamic and the kinds of spice I used, the dom sub dynamics I played with in that, they're like, it's changed our marriage, you know? And so it's this idea of like, they didn't know what was possible in their own sexual relationship with their partner until they see it represented on the page of like, oh, I could do that. I want to do that. Yeah. I'm going to do that. Will you do that with me? And now something gets unlocked. So I think from the smallest of things to just how I talk to my partner in the bedroom to, am I going to have a career? Am I going to marry this man? Right? All of it matters. Right. So when we go back to like these readers being like, it's not political, right? It's like, it all is. For women, it all is, because everything about us, they're trying to politicize. They're trying to control whether you can have that family. They're trying to control whether you can get married, whether you can vote, whether you can travel, whether you need a passport. Like everything about your life is being politicized. So you need to understand that when you're reading your books, the smallest of details, if it's a woman on the page, you can imagine there's a way it can be and likely is being politicized, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's honestly, myself, thank you for bringing up the BDSM community, because I'm a dom. I am in that community, and I am Black, and I am a woman. I am queer. I am all these things.
Yeah.
And so I need not just my voice, I need multiple voices. Yes, I can fight the good fight, but at the end of the day, I hate to say it, but it's the truth. I am Black. So my voice get lost a lot.
Yeah.
In a lot of loud voices that don't want my voice to be loud enough to be heard. So I appreciate that. And Lord forbid me as a woman being strong, educated, because I always say I'm a hood intellect, because I am streetwise because of how I was raised. But I have multiple degrees that can turn most men into putty. So I literally feel like as Black women, we are not heard a lot. We, as Black queers, we're not heard a lot.
Yeah.
As Black individuals, we are not heard a lot. And our bodies, from them saying, oh, we don't need to give you medication because Black people have a higher tolerance for pain.
Yeah.
Type deal.
Yeah.
So it's a constant struggle and fight. So when we have allies with white authors, it may seem to readers we expect so much of y'all. We expect. That's all. That's it. That's all. We expect. Because we love you guys, but we expect you to love us back equally.
Mhm.
As much as we will fight for you, we expect you to fight for us.
Yeah.
Um, and if I could tell you one book that, and I'm gonna email you this, but
Mhm.
one book I think you should read,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to womanism,
Mhm.
is Alice Walker's work.
Okay.
Alice Walker's book, Search of Our Mother's Gardens
Mhm.
and The Color Purple,
Mhm.
is eye opening.
Mhm.
The screen does not even do it justice.
Yeah.
So I will send you those because those are amazing books to really understand what womanism is from the Black perspective of a Black woman.
Yeah, I have read The Color Purple, but I have not read the first one. So definitely send,
Mm.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's, gosh, it's just, it goes back to that feeling of the justice of
Mm-hmm.
the amount of like rage that I feel and the amount of like frustration and sadness to think of like the voices that haven't been heard, right? The voices that haven't
Mm.
been heard, the voices that haven't been taken seriously. I used, whenever I taught critical race theory in all of my courses,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it was relevant to what I was teaching. And my
Mm-hmm.
entry point to critical race theory for students, because it was like the most graspable example for them, was I would ask them about maternal mortality rates in the United States. And I would say,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you're wanting to understand maternal mortality rates in the United States, I would ask them the question. I would give them the statistic, and I would say the U.S. has one of the highest rates of maternal mortality in the developed world. Why?
Mm-hmm.
And I would have them brainstorm why, and they would give, you know, all kinds of answers about like, oh, you know, medical problems, or oh, this, that, or the other. And it's like, unless you're willing to use the lens of critical race theory, you completely miss the point, because when you look and you break down the statistics, you see it's Black women that carry that statistic. Black women
Mm-hmm.
are the ones that are dying disproportionately higher, exponentially higher. And it's exactly what you're saying of like, oh, you can tolerate pain better, or you're just not part of our studies. We haven't tested medications on you, so we don't know how you'll react. So then we give them to you and they don't react the way that they should, right? And so it's just ludicrous. But so the students will go through a whole thing, and I let them, because that's kind of the point of the exercise. I let them go through a whole
Mm-hmm.
thing of giving me the reasons why, and race never comes up, you know.
Mm.
And so it's like, this is why we need a critical racial lens. We need critical race theory.
Yeah.
We need to ask the question, if racism was real, how might
Mm-hmm.
that impact this question, right? If
Mm-hmm.
racism was real, how might that impact the publishing community? If racism
Mm-hmm.
was real, how would that answer the question of why aren't more Black people's books hitting the New York Times, right? Like, it becomes so obvious the moment we ask with the preface, if racism was real. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's exhausting. It's
It
exhausting
is.
that I would have students in the classroom that would tell me like, that's like, oh, racism isn't a thing anymore.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
just like, it starts to feel like, I can't help you. Like, if you if you can't see it, if you can't see the
Yeah.
water falling from the sky, I can't tell you it's raining, you know, like
Yeah.
I can't help you. It's astounding, but it means that those voices get lost. The voices of people
Yeah.
saying, it's raining on us. I'd be like, I don't even see it. I don't even hear it.
Yeah.
And it's
Woefully
exhausting.
ignorant.
Yeah,
Woefully ignorant.
it's exhausting.
So your books have not just resonated, they've stirred discourse. Some call it bold, some others polarizing.
Yeah.
How do you personally navigate the friction of being a beloved author in one circle while being a lightning rod in
Yeah.
another?
Yeah, so I think a piece of advice that I really took to heart, because I am such the little emotional double cancer. I hate confrontation, and it's the feeling of like in the heart. It's like on the outside, I don't care. I
Mhm.
don't care if anybody likes me, but on the inside, it's I want everyone to like me. You know, it's like living in that duality space. But so for me, two things helped.
Mhm.
The first one was a piece of advice I heard from Emily McIntyre, who Emily McIntyre does the kind of Disney remake series. So she has like Hooked, Scarred, Crossed, all of those. And she was like, you want 1-star reviews. You want them because it means your books have reached the wider market. Like as long as like when Pucking Around was only being read by hockey romance readers willing to try a Why Choose Romance, that was a 4.5 5-star book for weeks when it first launched, right? It was like, we love it because they were the target audience. But now you can go in and see, I have a rich range of reviews on that book. It's because it actually got out. It got out and it was exposed to people who were not liking it, hated it, DNF'd it, right? And so it's this thing of like, you want that because it means it went somewhere, right? It got readership. And I think the other thing that has really helped me is me really separating out the idea in my mind of like, the story is only mine until I hit publish. So the story is written, I write the story. I have my experience of writing the story. It's my precious, special little thing. And I have my connectivities to it. I have my inspirations for it. I have my playlists and my, the mood boards that I do. The moment I hit publish, it's yours. It's not mine anymore. It becomes the property of every reader who engages with it. And you're going to come to it with a whole range of your own life experiences, your own taste in music, your own desire to create mood boards, right? So for me, it's not, the thing that got published is not mine anymore. So you're going to have whatever relationship you want to with it. So I have readers on the spectrum from they love it so much, they've turned it into their personality, they've tattooed my words on their skin. They live with it under their skin. And then I have people that DNF it and think I was uninterested. And then I have people that are doing hour-long takedowns and people that want to cancel my career. Like, there's a range there. And so you just, at some point, you just have to be like, all of this is valid. Like, not the, like, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to say it's valid. The people that want to like hate me because they don't want queer people to have rights, like not valid, not y'all. But the people that just DNF it because they're like, it wasn't for me. I'm like, great. I can't, that's fine. That can't hurt me that it wasn't for you, but it takes that separation. It takes that, like, I want this to reach a wider audience.
Yeah.
And also the precious moment I had with it is done. Now it's yours. And you're going to have whatever moment you want with it. It could be good or it could be bad.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like,
yes, it does.
That kind of.
I'm enjoying this. I really am enjoying this conversation. I was kind of nervous at first because I didn't want. I'm gonna say this as a Black woman. When talking to white authors, you have in the back of your head, because I am so assertive, they might think I'm aggressive. Because I understand what questions that I want to speak. They might think I'm trying to be uppity or something like that. In the back of my head, as a Black woman, that's how I feel when I interview white authors. It's nothing against the white authors. This is just how society has seen Black women. I get it. My nerves were on edge. Oh goodness. So, well, I hope I've opened some kind of door that you feel like you can ask me whatever the questions are. I get that, like, it literally came up in performance reviews when I was a professor. I have extreme RBF, extreme. And so it came up in reviews when I was trying to get my PhD. It came up that it's like how rude I am, or how, like, it was a course where the professor never shut up. I think I maybe got 2 sentences in during that course. And she wrote me up as like I was disagreeable. I'm just like,
but it's the kind of thing it's the kind of thing of
Mhm.
the more interested I am in what you're saying, the more I look like I want to murder your family. Like, because I just get really intense. But so I get it. I'm very intense and straightforward as well. And if you see me, I can often have like crossed arm,
Yeah,
like you ain't shit
I'm
face, you
like
know?
that. Like some people in the comments know me. They like I have the RBF. So
Yeah. I love someone just put, I'm
and
not angry, I'm just thinking. That's me. I'm not angry.
yeah.
I'm just thinking. I'm just
So, and
listening.
also, you guys, it's Mental Health Month as
Yes.
well, Mental Health Awareness Month. So,
Yeah.
I just, me, I do have mental issues. I was
Mm.
diagnosed with a form of sociopathy,
Mm.
and I have explosive anger disorder and PTSD from the military. So,
Mhm.
sometimes my emotions will range, and when I
Mhm.
let my mask slip, you get the RBF. It's not, I'm mad. It's just,
Mm.
I don't know how to deal with emotions the way normal people do.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
that's 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 what I want to put out there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Valid.
all right, so you write angst and
Mhm.
emotional suspense because I look, you be having me on edge sometimes. You write angst and emotional suspense with intensity,
Yeah.
but it never feels bloated or overwrought.
Oh.
How do you balance raw emotional pull with narrative control? What's
Yeah.
your internal editing process like for you emotionally complex,
Yeah.
scenes?
Yeah. So especially when it comes like, oh, I love angst. There is nothing like I love a good slow burn. Like
Mhm.
that's why I'm so drawn to things like a second chance romance because
Mhm.
you're telling me we've been slow burning this for 10 years. You're telling me that I've been pining for you. You've been the
Yeah.
only one for 10 years and now we're back together. Like say less. I love a good slow burn. I love a good angst. I think for me, the thing I've put into my head is I call it like the breadcrumb trail of like
Mhm.
I feel like effective angst only works if you feed them. You got to keep feeding them a little bit,
Mm.
you know. So it's like I got to give you breadcrumbs as we walk down the trail. And so it's just the matter of I will strategically look like the way that I'll do my drafting in I draft in Scrivener. And so Scrivener has a
Mhm.
great thing on the side with like the binder effect and you can color code the chapters in your binder. I will especially for angst like romance angst and things like that. I color code the romance chapters. They tend to be purple. So it's like
Mm.
if I know that I have like any kind of romantic anything it gets color
Mhm.
coded purple. So then I can see the visual of like, has too much time gone by before I've given you something, like a significant look, some witty
Mhm.
banter, like something
Mhm.
has to keep feeding the little birds as they, as they keep
Mhm.
going down the path.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I think about of like, you want the right balance of stretching it out but then the payoff has to be there too. So like when you finally
Mhm.
get I think readers will get to see this in book 4, Pucking Strong. It is so angsty and slow burn. It's delicious. I had like my most fun writing this book. But so then it's like once we get to that first kiss, it's just like I'm screaming, so it's like because you have it's like you have to earn it, right? So it's about
Mhm.
breadcrumbing it until they earn it.
Mm.
And it's fun. It's a fun balance to try and strike.
Okay.
Edging, right? Edge lord over here.
Oh,
People,
I
my
love a good
readers,
edging.
yeah, my readers joke that it's like yeah. And the funny thing is since you talk about like BDSM or kink or whatever, I don't think I've ever actually done like I need to do this. I need to do a true edging scene. Like it's like I edge with the romance, but I don't think I've actually had like in scene, like in a play scene, a really good edging scene. I should.
Let me tell you,
Should,
there
right?
is two. Let me tell you, there's two black authors that do it to the point of, oh my God, am I really in? Am I the character? Am I
Yeah.
the problem? And that is Cartier
Yeah.
and E. Bowser.
Oh, okay.
My fucking God.
Yeah.
The edgy,
Yeah.
the Dom sub situ, the oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It's
fucking it's disgustingly nasty.
yeah, it's delicious, right? So yeah, so I'll have to because it's like I love it in the plot. Like I love
Mhm.
edging in terms of the romance plot, right? So like the almost,
Mhm.
especially in book 4, it's almost like almost kiss. Like we almost got there. We keep almost
Mhm.
getting to the romance, right? And then yeah, I just keep edging
Mhm.
it. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I
A lot
love
of
it.
suspense and
I
angst.
want to see you do it. I want to see
Yeah.
you do it in a book. I
Yeah.
really want to see it. And when you do it, just hit me up. Be like, hey, I put
Yeah.
the edging in there
Yeah.
because
It's in
I
yeah.
love a good edging.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Um,
Fun
do
times.
you believe? Do you believe that female romance authors,
Mm-hmm.
especially queer and outspoken ones, receive more backlash or scrutiny than their male counterparts? If so, how do you experience that? How have you experienced that personally?
I think, let's see, do we experience more backlash? I think I think it depends like the genres. I feel like
Mhm.
absolutely. I feel like absolutely women authors are held to a different standard than men. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I think from everything from how present we're supposed to be in our fandoms, how we're supposed to engage with our fandoms, how much we're supposed to kind of give back to our fandoms, how active.
Mhm.
Men are held to very different standards, right? Men can be super popular and like give nothing away. And it seems like women really are having to hustle more in their brands,
Mhm.
of being more active and more present and more engaged and giving more of ourselves away, right?
Mhm.
I think you definitely see some of that. I think you also see, but we should throw some intersectionality on that of whether it's gay men, right? So gay men have a
Mhm.
completely different kind of hurdle than
Absolutely.
like, so my queer journey as a white woman is very different even than a white man, but his gayness then is putting him into a different kind of basket, right? So
Mhm.
all of this is complicated, but I think in general, if I'm competing with straight white men in the fantasy field, for example, they're just playing a different kind of game. It really starts to
Mhm.
feel. I've used the analogy before of like we're all at the Olympics, right? But we're playing different
Mhm.
sports. So even someone
Mm.
like even within genre or something, like you think of someone like Elsie Silver, right? Because Elsie Silver just had
Mhm.
yet another release. Elsie's doing phenomenally well, huge sales. And so you can start to feel like I'll never compete with Elsie, right? But then it's like we are playing different sports at this Olympics because Elsie writes a very
Mhm.
specific kind of book that is not at
Mhm.
all what my book is. So it's the
Yes.
feeling, sometimes it's the feeling of what do they say, like comparison is the thief of joy. So you can
Mhm.
feel like, oh, these authors are out here crushing it. And it's like, well, because they're competing in gymnastics. Everyone knows Simone Biles' name, right? But
Mhm.
I'm over here competing in a different sport. I'm gold medaling. I hit the New York Times, I've hit USA Today, I'm a #1 Amazon bestseller, but I'm curling, you know? So it's like, who can name the top 3 curlers in the world compared to who can name the top 3 gymnasts in the world? But we're both at the
Mm.
Olympics winning medals. So that's been
Mm.
for me because I'm such a competitive person and I love games and I love winning, right? For me that has really helped of like it doesn't take
Mm.
away any of these feelings of justice or fairness. It doesn't take away
Mm.
feelings of their bar was lower than mine or they get
Yeah.
opportunities that I don't get or I have a harder time because I'm queer and so I get shunted to the side and called a cunt and all these things. It's like shut up queer cunt, just write books, let us pretend and let
Mm.
us fetishize your content. you know
Yeah.
it doesn't make it easier, but it makes it like it makes it I don't know, it calms my brain down, I guess.
Mm.
If that does that make sense? Like it's like ways that
Yeah.
I'm like I can't fix the system, but if I understand the system a little better, I can
Mhm.
exist within it a little easier
Mhm.
because I can see like I feel like I always told my students like knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
Knowledge is power. You can't you can't try and take down a system if you don't know what the system is. You can't try
Mm,
and see your place in a system if you're not
mhm.
studying the system and know what it is,
Yeah.
right? So that's the analogy I've kind of stuck with, is like we're all at the Olympics, but we're
Yeah.
playing different sports.
Yeah.
Um, and so it just changes the kind of press we get, what we're able to do,
Yeah.
the hurdles we might face,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively. Like, but bump, that one's
That
lame.
is true.
that was lame because
That
of
is
the Olympic joke. Like the hurdles, get it?
No, but I get it. I really get it. And I just want to say kudos, congratulations on
Yeah.
all the accomplishments that you have done. And everyone that's in the chat, I also want you to understand queerness is also diversity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know DEI has been such a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand this. Diversity is needed because we're
Mm-hmm.
all a melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I want you today to go to your nearest big chain uh store, Barnes and Nobles, I don't know, Secondhand Charles, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Go to them, ask them for a queer book,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure they have it on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Ask them for a Black and POC book. Make sure they have it on the shelf, whether it's traditional or indie, because indie authors can be in big chains.
Mm-hmm.
Request them,
Mm-hmm.
because equality and equity should be across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you are white, black, purple, green, an alien, big dick, little dick, small dick, all that shit. Everybody deserves it.
Yeah.
You know, so be the voice, be the change.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the book that I am just so happy to talk about. The North is the Night.
North is the Night. Yeah.
The North is the Night feels like a love letter to Finnish mythology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It filtered through an epic dark fantasy romance.
Mm-hmm.
What pulled you toward that world and mythology?
Yeah.
And how does this new venture into, I guess, and not really even new, but
Mm-hmm.
is it new? I don't know. Romanticy.
Yeah.
Aligned with or challenge what readers expect from Emily Rath?
Yeah. Well, so let's see. I'll take it in pieces. So I'll take the last piece first. The idea of, does this challenge what my brand is? I go back to the fact that no, North is the Night is actually the third book I ever wrote. It's just the nature of publishing means it was the 11th book I got published. And so I've always been a fantasy girly at heart, number one. You're going to get more fantasy from me. I have more fantasy. I have the second book in this series I'll do. I just I don't know, like vague publishing news. I just sold something that definitely has like paranormal fantasy, very much a strong fantasy vibe to it. So that's where my heart has been. Okay. So it's a departure in the sense of, if you met me through Hockey Romance, dare to take this journey and try a fantasy. And it can be a hard bridge for readers to cross. Readers can get very comfortable in, I do contemporary, or just readers that literally I know readers that only read Hockey Romances. There's enough of them out there, and that's their happiest place. So it's the kind of thing of, take a journey with me, won't you? And let's try this other thing. When it comes to North is the Night, the inspiration for that really is, I have always loved world mythologies and folklores. I'm the kind of kid that it's like, when we traveled, when we did trips places, the thing I wanted, the souvenir I wanted, was whatever book I could get my hands on that would be like local fairy tales or, books on mythology. So visiting my grandma out in Arizona and going to, Navajo reservations and being able to get a book on like Dene folklore, things like that. So, I mean, I'm literally looking at my shelf up on my bookshelf, and I can see several of them from my past. But so for me, I had started the first book I wrote to try and get published was a Greek underworld inspired story. So it followed the children of Hades and Persephone. and I've always loved death mythologies as well. I love exploring different cultures, interpretations of where do we go when we die, how much crossover is there, right? The idea of like living in Malawi, the idea of the spirits are everywhere. They live on a plane parallel to ours. They can constantly come across and impact us in our daily living, right? So I've always loved that feeling of wanting to know, where do we go when we die? What's over there? Can we come back? Right. So I wrote this whole Greek book. I tried to get it published. I got close, I got close on a couple of agent offers, but I was like, you know what? Let's try something different. Let's pivot. Let's try the new book. And so I was like, what is something that could be similar to that? Because Greek mythology stuff was feeling really oversaturated back when I wrote this. And so I was like, well, what's something we haven't seen before? And that's where I was like, my family history, we're Finnish, like up both sides of the family tree. I have Finnish heritage. My grandmother grew up speaking Finn in the home. And she was always telling me about our Finnish culture. She would like bake things for me and, talk about stories from Finland. She gave me a copy of the Kalevala, which the Kalevala is the Finnish national epic. So it's like their book of mythology. And it was like, I was sitting there being like, I don't know anything about the mythology of Finland. And so I started Googling it, and just this whole world exploded for me, right? Of like, oh my gosh, it's as rich and as deep as the Greek pantheon. So much similarity to the Greek pantheon, right? That it's very, North is the Night is very Hades, Persephone coded. But it's because the Finnish idea of the underworld is so similar, right? An underground realm ruled by a king. It's an island type thing with a dark river that surrounds it, a fairy person. You have to cut, your soul comes down. You have to pay the fairy person. They ask you questions. They take you across in the boat. It's like, this is all the same. We just have some gender swapping of characters. Very similar, right? So I knew that readers could connect to it, even as I gave them something entirely new. So I was just like, this would be so fun. Like, if you love Hades, Persephone, you're going to get the vibe of it.
Yeah.
Even as some of the things are different and some of the names are different. And there's other elements that I brought in. But yeah, it really did. It became a love story to Finnish culture, Finnish mythology, folklore. And drawing on my experiences, like I said, my ex-evangelical journey that I was on, my queer awakening journey I was on. Siri was the first queer character I ever wrote. And so Siri does a lot of heavy lifting for me in my kind of coming out journey, that like friends to lovers journey. It was through writing Siri that it forced me to come out, because a lot of the early readers of North, they were worried about me kind of trampling on the own voices situation they were like, this isn't your story to tell. And so I had to come out in order to best let North as the Night shine. I felt like I had to embrace the story I was telling, and I had to embrace my positionality to it. And so I came out as a way of being able to say, this is valid. Like, I'm allowed to tell Siri's story because it's my story. Like, it's my story. But yeah, so it does a lot of heavy lifting. It's a love story to Finland. It's a queer awakening, kind of coming of age. Lots of stuff.
Okay, as someone who loves Norse mythology, this is giving Prosetta. It's giving that mythology, those stories, those sayings that you have in the Prosetta, and the elder tales of all the Norse. It's just that's what it's giving me. And like, now Suri, her friendship with Ina,
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 Aina.
The
Yep.
two best friends were
Yep.
so, it was different energies. It was
Yeah.
very much different. Suri is headstrong and independent. Aina is more gentle and cautious.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you write a friendship like that? Two
Mm-hmm.
women who are polar opposites,
Mm-hmm.
but make it genuine and grounded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the center of that story for me is this question of, am I strong enough? Like,
Mm,
is who I am, exactly as I am, strong
mm,
enough? Like, strong
mm,
enough to survive what's happening to me? Because a really great question that people like to ask is, what if their roles were reversed? What if Siri
mm,
was in Ina's position? Like, is she strong enough to survive? And like, my thing is like, Siri would be dead. Siri would be dead because she would have pissed the wrong witches off. Like,
yep.
the witch queen would have just cut her head off just to stop her from
Facts.
yapping, of like shit.
Facts.
So it's like Siri would have gotten herself killed so fast. Just
Mm-hmm.
as like if Ina was in the other position, would Ina have been able to brave this journey north and take down wolves and do all these things and combat a snow witch, all this stuff? It's like, would she have survived? It's like,
Mm,
no. And so it's this
no.
feeling of like, but both their strengths are valid. Who they are,
Mm-hmm.
the strength that they have, whether it's a quieter internal mental strength, being able to play a
Mm-hmm.
game of cat and mouse and win, or
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a more action oriented, I am strong enough, I can defeat the elements, I can defeat the forces that are around me. But they're
Mm-hmm.
both so valid. And I think a lot of their story was inspired by my lifelong best friend, because we're very Syrian Ina coded,
Mm-hmm.
of that feeling of quiet inner strength versus for me being more of a Siri, that loud, take charge, dominant outer appearing
Mm-hmm.
strength. But yeah, really, really coming to respect my friend and see the strength in her, even as it was so different than mine.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing how she survived different things in her life and the way she handled it her way, as even if she
Mm-hmm.
would like she'd come out of asking me for advice or something. Like we found out early that we weren't great at giving each other advice because we're so different, that it's like,
Yeah.
I'll give you advice. It's like, you're not going to take it because that's not who you are, because my advice would just be to like, tell him to shut up. It's like, she's not going to do that, or it's like, break up with him. She's not going to do that, so it's like, how are we going to,
Yeah.
how are we going to handle this?
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, and then comes the twist.
Mm-hmm.
And spoiler alert, y'all, look, because y'all should have been on the bandwagon. Y'all should be reading it. Ina's romance with
Tuoni, yeah.
Tuoni,
Tuoni.
the god of death.
Mm-hmm.
There's this unexpected tenderness,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
woven into the danger.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance friendship, romance, and the high stakes journey in a
Yeah.
way that keeps each element its own plot thread
Yeah.
instead of letting one overpower the other?
Yeah. My gosh, that's such a good question. I think the overarching journey of this book is Siri and Ina's quest to like reunite with each other, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what you get with Siri's journey is more of like, she is determined to save Ina. I'm
Mm-hmm.
giving, this isn't that much of a spoiler. It happens in like chapter 1 and 2. Ina is taken by a death goddess and dragged into
Mm-hmm.
Tuonela, which is the Finnish underworld. So within like chapter 1, you have Siri and Ina being best friends. Ina's taken away. And Siri goes on a journey to say, I'm going to get her back. I will do whatever it takes. I will follow her into death and I will bring her back out because she belongs with me,
Mm-hmm.
right? She belongs with me. And so Siri, it's told in dual POV, and it's the kind of thing of the reader has information that the characters don't. And I think that's a fun place to be in, of as you are seeing that it's like, what's happening to each of them. They don't know what's happening to each other. And so what I love to see is it's like they're constantly making decisions for the other one. and in
Mm.
service to the other one, in hopes that it might reunite them with the other one, not
Mm.
knowing what the other one is doing. So from the reader perspective, we get the fun of being like, don't do it, she's almost there, or like that kind of thing, or it's like, don't do this, like just wait and Siri will
Yeah.
come, it's like you hope that Siri will come, it's like, she's on the way, you idiot, that kind of thing. But it's
Yeah.
you're stuck as the reader, just kind of watching it and being like, no, but then you
Mm.
start to root, right? You start to root for one thing I loved. I've always been fascinated by the Hades Persephone story, but
Mhm.
I think it's a deeply problematic relationship. I think
Yeah.
like literally he's kidnapped her and
Yep.
R-worded her and
Mhm.
kept her, trapped her, hid her away from the earth as her mother literally ravaged the earth, set it on fire, searching for her. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't a happy story. And everything
Yeah.
that happened afterwards, like everything that happens to them, it's not a happy story. And so I feel like I I did kind of the classic thing of like we talked about at the very beginning of this, where the bar is so low. The bar is so low for men. And so the bar is so low for Tuoni that readers are just like, I want her to be with him forever. And I just have to be
Really?
like, yes, that the readers like, their end goals, like they're, yeah, amazing. But it's like, because I wrote him the way I did, I wrote him so that you get pulled in and you
Mm.
see it, and you see his tenderness, you see his love, you see his humanity, and it's like, oh yes, I could get pulled into this too, right? But it's the kind of
Mhm.
thing of like, at the end of the day, like, none of this was a forced choice, right? Aina made a forced choice. This was never supposed to be this way, so
Mhm.
as things unravel the way that they do. But it's like, yeah, readers are always so interesting, or they're so predictable, it's like, yes,
Yeah.
goals, I love him. And it's like, let's unpack this, shall we? Like, let's
Yeah.
unpack, or like I saw one review though. I saw a review where the reader was just beside themselves. They were so upset because they were like, she didn't have a choice, and then she was kissing him, and oh my god, there was nothing romantic about it, and the blah 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 blah. And they basically were hitting every nail on the head without like, they didn't take that final step to connect it for me to be like, that's the point. The point
Mhm.
is that literally everything you're saying, yes, it was a forced choice, yes, she kisses him, yes, as it moves forward. But it's like, there was just that disconnect with that reader of
Mm.
like, they were so upset because they thought I was writing this beautiful lyrical romance, and it's like, you pointed out every problematic thing. All you had to do was follow it to the conclusion of, this is problematic. Like, that's the
Yeah.
whole point. You know what I mean? But it was just kind of like, they couldn't take it that far. So then they were mad at me as if I was like glorifying the problematic. And it's like, no, literally, that's the point. It's the point,
I'm
is
I,
to say
I'm
this
so
is
glad I analyzed y'all books. I like, not on purpose, not on purpose, but it's just, anytime I read a book, I analyze it, like
yeah,
from point A to point B. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I take everything. Maybe that's just my mental issues, but I
hmm,
literally analyze every word, every situation, every plot. Unless you in the beginning said this is just fucking,
yeah,
and there ain't no plot.
yeah,
Other than that, I am analyzing everything. Whether
hmm,
it's a dark romance, a paranormal, historical fiction, I'm analyzing. So
hmm,
I love that
yeah,
you guys have such a wide, vast imagination when you write these characters in books.
yeah,
And not, I need readers to understand, not every character is a happily ever after.
yeah, yeah. Not every character is end game. Not every character, and it's like, you can love them for the season of life that you're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can feel a genuine love for someone that you know is the wrong someone, and you can move
Mm-hmm.
on, and you can choose the right someone. Like, that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
negate any of the joy or any of the positive experiences or any of the growth that you had as a person with the wrong someone.
Yeah.
But people
Yeah.
have their seasons in your life, and not
But
everyone is forever.
that's where you get the ones that be like, "Oh, my reading is not political."
Yeah. Yeah.
You get those individuals who
Yeah.
say reading is not political because they have not even looked at the bigger picture of the literature that they are actually reading.
Yeah. Well, it's like I got that with this book when everything blew
Mm.
up, a couple weeks ago. They're like, just write the books. And I was like, you understand that what I'm writing, because I'm writing the follow up to this book now. And so it's like, okay, reading isn't political. I'll just write my book that is set in a fantasy version of medieval Finland at the start of the Swedish Crusade. The Catholic Church, under the crown of Sweden, invaded Finland, took it over, genocided the people and the culture, forced them to convert to Christianity at the point of a sword, and ruled over them for 800 years. I'll tell that story. Like, how do you not see the politics inherent in that? Like, I'm sorry. It's
Exactly.
literally like, how do you not see the politics in what I'm doing? And I'm doing a fractured historical fantasy where I'm saying, what if the Finnish gods partnered with these queer pagan girls with axes and they took their country back? And they, it's like the pagans won, right?
Exactly.
So it's just like, but I'll just shut up and dribble. Like, that's what you want me to do. But then they'll read it and they're going to be like, I'm Siri. Like, they're not even going to, like, it's all these people that are reading it and they're being like, I'm Katniss. I'm Elphaba. And you have to be like, you are the soldier putting the goat in a cage. Like, you are not Elphaba. You are you're the mindless soldier with no dialogue that shoves the goat in the cage. Like, be so for real. It's like,
It's for real. Like,
yeah.
that's real talk.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of moral and supernatural dilemmas in the book, questions of loyalty, sacrifice, death, and faith.
Yeah.
But they don't overwhelm the world building that you have perfectly
Oh, that's
written.
nice to know.
What's your secret to creating characters who feel fully realized without falling into trope territory?
Yeah, I think the big thing is like my creativity is very cinematic. I see so when it comes to writing a world that feels very lived in, my creativity, I see it, it's almost like I can close my eyes and it's like I can step outside of myself and into the scene. That's how real it feels to me. And so trying to capture that for the reader so they also feel like they are with Siri running through the woods, hearing the wolves closing in, the crunch of the snow under their feet, the breath hot against their mouth as the air is cold. Like I want them to feel like they're right there in it. And that's part of that cinematic element. And then weaving the other pieces in, it helps to create depth to the world. So like one of the things that I love to do is I really try and focus on using all 5 senses as I write. And the often underused one for creating really complex worlds is smell. That too often readers are not engaging, or authors are not engaging with the sense of smell. You get touch all the time. They're touching things, they're moving things, they're adjusting their uniforms, whatever. And you get sight and you get them talking and you get them hearing. But smell is that one that is often missing. And it adds so much to a scene, whether it's the scent of the forest, food. I love describing the scent of food on a table, the way a person smells, right? The idea of like, with romances that it's like, oh, you can even get candles that are like, this is his signature scent, right? That kind of thing. But it matters. It hooks into a different kind of the brain, like a different part of the brain that locks you into the story in a different way. So I really try and focus on smell as a piece of what I'm doing as well. But yeah, it's just about peppering in enough of the detail to make the world feel lived in is the kind of
Yeah.
feeling I'm going for. I want it to feel like you could live in it. You could step off the
Mm,
page and live in Jake's house. You can picture enough
mm,
of it to feel like I can be comfortable on his couch. Or in Siri's case, I can feel like I know what this forest looks like,
mhm.
without overwhelming the reader,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you can do that. You can overwhelm the reader. So it's like,
Mm,
I want to give you the details, but not too many details.
yeah.
The sweet spot, if you can find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's clear you use the supernatural not just as an aesthetic,
Mm-hmm.
but as metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Because y'all, this is my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it to yourself coming in my DMs. Um, you don't shy away from showing the best and worst in humanity.
Mm.
Was that life imitating art for you, or was it always a part of your storytelling intention?
Yeah, no, I think it matters. I think just as it matters that we have a hockey romance where deeper themes are coming into play, right? It's not just some kind of
Mm-hmm.
fluffy hockey romance. Um, I think with all of the stories that I tell, like I've said previously too, I'm telling it to myself first and foremost. I've
Mm-hmm.
joked, I've like joked in the past that writing for me has been like my form of therapy. Like I'm in, everyone calm down, I'm in therapy now. But before I was in therapy, writing was my therapy. Writing was how I
Mm-hmm.
handled the things that had happened to me, and writing was how I
Mm-hmm.
handled politics, and it was how I could take situations that didn't go the way I wanted and imagine a new ending, right? So the things like I mentioned of like a friends to lovers by awakening, writing that is
Mm-hmm.
a way of healing the fact that I never got that, and I wish if I could go back in time I would change things. But now I can, through the writing, I can give other characters the stories and the conclusions that I wish I could have had, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But then there's also things like, a common theme in my hockey series is like really problematic parents. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that might be a write-in, right? It was like, how does Emily handle having people that are narcissistic in her life? How do we handle someone who gaslights you to the point of insanity? Because that's real. Like we all can experience having, a mother-in-law that gaslights you and talks down to you and wishes that you would just fade away from the earth. It's like it matters. Like whether the stakes are a fantastical world where it's the goddess of death that wants you dead, or it's
Mm-hmm.
a shitty mother-in-law in a hockey romance, like writing all of these characters and making them complex and making them have real human relationships, it
Mm-hmm.
matters. Each one kind of paints ways that it's like, here's how you move through this. Here's how
Yeah.
you, like a big one is Tess's book, that's Pucking Wild, that's book 2. Tess has a very problematic ex-husband.
Mm-hmm.
He's financially abusive, emotionally, physically. Some of that gets onto the page. And so for me, that was actually a big challenge for me of like, I wrote him as an amalgamation of so many different things and people in my life. He's
Mm-hmm.
not like one, like that was my ex Trevor, fuck Trevor. Like
Yeah.
he's multiple things that I've kind of compiled into
Mm-hmm.
one person. But for me, what was really hard as an author and as like the social justice warrior I am, is how many readers reached out to me to thank me for writing Tess, because they see now that an HEA is on the horizon, but that they're still stuck with their Troy. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's like, you can't just come into my DMs and tell me that, because
Mm-hmm.
what you're signaling to me is that you are in an abusive relationship. And so like for me, it's like I can't say nothing about like that's been really tough, because in my role as a university professor, there were always ways that I could report, and there were ways that I
Mm-hmm.
could escalate within the university structure. If a student came to me and said I'm in an abusive relationship, I could escalate that to the proper authorities. And now here I am as this author that has people around the world reaching out and sharing their stories with me and things like that. And like, these stories are real. As much as they're all fake, the relationships are so real. And the quandaries these characters are facing, the dynamics they have to navigate are taken from real life. They're real. And readers see themselves in them. Even if it's a fantastical, I'm not actually a shaman that uses a drum to separate pieces of my soul, but I am on my own queer awakening journey. You know, so it's like they can see the way that it connects to their real life. But then they come to me and they tell me, and I'm just like, oh, what do I do with this? You know?
Yeah.
It's sorry, I veered that question a bit there at the end, but it's been on my heart.
You're
It's been on
fine.
my mind a lot of like, man,
These are things that
suffering.
needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
These are really things that need to be talked about, because there are so many men and women who are in abusive relationships, because yes, men can be abused too.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
there are so many men and women, so many queer teenagers
Mm-hmm.
and young teenagers that aren't queer, that are in
Mm-hmm.
abusive relationships, and they have nowhere to
Mm-hmm.
turn. And a
Yeah.
lot of them are readers.
Yeah.
A lot of them use reading as a way to talk to people to get help.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy you said something.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to come up with, I'm working with my cousin. She works in preventative services for sex trafficking. And she actually has she's the executive director of a nonprofit, and they specialize in doing education programming for children, right? Because what we're seeing, especially with trafficking, is it's happening younger and younger, to the point that now children are starting to traffic each other as young as like 8 and 10 years old, because that's the most common thing that you're seeing, is that they're trafficking each other. It's not some kind of taken situation. You know, that's a very rare instance where you're actually like physically taken and trafficked that way. You stay in the home, and it's often children that are trafficking each other. But so one of the things that she has is like they're putting together like a research, like a training program for people that would be, because I told her, I was like, that would be perfect for authors. You should, like, when you're done with that training, I would like you to present it to me and my author friends, because it's basically about how to be a bridge. If you have someone that's coming to you, I am not a court mandated reporter. I'm not, I'm not a trained psychologist. I'm not a trained therapist. But if you report to me, I want to be an effective bridge to bridge you to the resources that can help you. Right. And so what she's doing is putting together training materials, and almost kind of uh, like a code book that you could use, or like phrase it like something I could put on my website, even, that it's like how I can be a bridge of, if you're going to come to me, because like reading is heavy, like you're saying, some people do not have therapy. Reading might be their only therapy.
Yes.
They come to this author that they trust, that told this story that impacted them, and it's like, I cannot carry this with you, but I can bridge you to the proper resources, And so that's kind of a journey I've been on recently. I think it goes a lot towards the allyship piece of this. How can I be the best ally to my queer readers? How can I be the best ally to readers that might have an experience of trafficking or DV or whatever it is? Like, I can be the best possible bridge that you can access what you need to through my stories, and you can seek help, and I
You
can
know,
facilitate it.
it's crazy, for the simple fact that I don't know if you know, in the urban fiction genre,
Mm-hmm.
they Black authors write about this all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and they get demonized for
Mm-hmm.
writing about it, because they be like, "Oh, that is so too much."
Mm-hmm.
And then other authors that are not Black write about it, that is so prolific. and
Yeah.
it minimizes the experiences that Black and POC authors go through when they're writing
Yeah.
these topics all the time. Whether
Yeah.
it be urban fiction, contemporary romance, IR, they're writing about it because
Mhm.
this is a lived experience, or they knew someone in the community that went through it.
Mhm.
Because people, I hate to tell y'all, in reality, Black and POC children are taken more than anybody.
Mm.
It's just that you don't hear about it. They are trafficked more than anybody
Mhm.
overseas and in America.
Mhm.
It is, nobody talks about it.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm so big on allyship. You
Mhm.
know, because even though our voices, we have a lot of voices, but when
Mhm.
you say it, people stand up and listen.
Yeah, that's again, it goes back to like the justice warrior in me is like, this is bullshit. It's bullshit that
Mm.
my weight would carry more weight than someone else's voice. Like my voice would carry more weight than someone else's voice. But then it's the reality of it, because that's that. I actually got a lot of backlash. I got a lot of backlash in the past couple of weeks. Not like MAGA giving me backlash and being like, "Boo, I'm burning your books." That's fine. I got a lot of backlash in the non-white community, in particular in the Black community. They were very upset for this exact reason, that they were like, Emily doesn't deserve any of these things that are happening to her. You're all
Mm.
platforming her books now. You're going out and buying her books. We've been saying this for decades and no one's out here
Mm.
buying our books, right? And so, but they were like, they were very bitter towards me, right? And naming me by names. I was getting tagged in these videos, but it is like, all I could do was be like, I know, right? This fucking sucks. This sucks. Like I don't deserve any praise. And yet what people were doing in the comments is, it's like, you're the first white person I've ever seen speak out. And it's
Mm.
like, what a shitty fucking world we live in. I'm the first. I'm the first. Number one, I question your algorithm, right? I want to any person that says I'm the first white person they've seen speak out about these issues. I want to be like, you need to take control of your algorithm, because I am
Mm-hmm.
not. I am not. And so what are you teaching these social media apps that you want to see? You know, and that we could be doing better there, right? But
Mm-hmm.
also just a feeling of like, God, it's so shitty. It's so shitty to feel like white voices speaking to white people carries more weight, just because it's like, we don't do that to each other. White women don't speak out on these issues to other white women. White women don't talk about the right to comfort. And it's like, that's the problem. That's the that's the
Mm-hmm.
problem. And it's infuriating. And that's going back to what we talked about, an hour ago, where it's like, I have these white women coming up to me in the shadows at the buffet table, like the author's only room, and they're telling me how proud they are of me and what an ally I am and how brave I am. And I'm like, bitch, you outsell me 10-1. Where are you? Where is your voice? I'm out
Mm-hmm.
here fighting the fights, and you're going to sneak up to me where no one can see and tell me how brave I am? Get the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? It's infuriating.
Yeah. I
Like, they
mean,
could
I've had
speak
my
up.
live taken down because we were talking about a Black author was talking, he's in the law enforcement, and
Yeah.
he was talking about the inequality in the prison system towards Black
Mm-hmm.
people. And he's writing books to get rid of the stereotypes
Mm-hmm.
about Black prisoners and the struggle they go through. And
Mm-hmm.
somebody had complained and told TikTok that we were talking something sexual or something like that to minors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what it was really about prison reform. And I had got put on restriction for like 7 days because of that, because they didn't like that he was speaking truth to power.
Yeah.
So it's trust me. Trust me, I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. So I have one last question about
Yeah.
your book. Before I move on to a different, I'm not gonna hold you too long.
Okay.
But this conversation is very entertaining. I love
No,
it.
I'm having fun.
what one thing that stood out to me was the historical tension you built in
Mm-hmm.
the presence of the Christian invaders,
Mm-hmm.
pushing out the old gods and the belief systems. How did you handle writing this real history while also weaving in fictional world building?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the real history part of it. I think with my experience doing the political science and peace studies as my, academic degrees, the fact that I focused on African politics and I was often looking at it in the modern context, was like you can't understand modern African politics without understanding where we've come from, right? So having to
Mm-hmm.
go through and study the periods of colonization, what colonization looked like, how it operated as a function of
Mm-hmm.
capitalism. Right? Like we're going to talk about what colonization really was. It was a vehicle for capitalism. And so you
Mm-hmm.
break down all of these pieces and you look at the fact that it has happened all over the world, right? And so for
Mm-hmm.
so many people, they had no idea. I can't tell you how many people were like, I had no idea that Europe was colonized. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, where have you been? It's like, but so it's this fact that it's like Finland was colonized first by Sweden and then by the former Soviet Union over 800 years, right? So starting around 1150, the Swedes came in, took over, genocided the culture, took away the language, took away their gods, took away everything about how they practiced their faith, demanded that they become Christian, right? Even as they fought. So one of the main characters in the second book, his name is Bishop
Mm-hmm.
Henry. Henry was a British priest that got raised to the level of a bishop. He was stationed in Sweden and he chose to launch a campaign, a crusade against Finland, because in his mind, it's like, if I can win Finland for the church, that will get me promoted to Rome. Like that will be me fast tracking my career. Whether I have to do it on the edge of a sword or not, that's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Henry's story ends up with him, like this is like Finnish national myth now. A Finnish man named Lally chases him onto a frozen lake and cuts his head off. But then the Catholic Church translated that into he's a martyr. And so now he is the number one most celebrated martyr in Finland. This bishop that genocided them, right? And so you just look at like me having lived in places all around the world that have been colonized and
Yeah.
have experienced that. And like for
Yeah.
me as well, it's been part of my evangelical journey of like how often the church is right there as the vehicle for that colonization. And so for me, it was very much me writing a truth to power kind of story of like,
Mm-hmm.
you are not and have never been the heroes of these tales. You are rapists and you're murderers and you're genociders, all in the name of your capitalist agenda. And so it's like, we need to tell these stories and we need to
Mm-hmm.
know that it's been everywhere. Finland did
Mm-hmm.
not reclaim its language as a national language until the 1870s, right? So this is not all of this. The fact that I'm able to talk to students about the independence movement in sub-Saharan Africa, the fact that there's still a colony on that continent. Like, what are we talking about? Colonization ended. There's still a colony. The US still has territories they claimed as colonies. Like, we still claim them and deny them statehood. Like, what are you talking about, right? This is now. This is like the history of now. It's not, that's what's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like I'm writing a fantasy that does not feel all that fantastical.
It does not.
Feels
It
like
does
now.
not.
But then readers
It
want to
does not.
say
And
it's not
you are
political.
giving real historical fiction when it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say this. Like, and I know a lot of y'all are in here is like, why she keep naming black books? Because there is a reason to my madness.
Yeah. Do it.
Emily, your book is historical fiction at its core, and it gets to the deep trenches of that culture.
Mm-hmm.
You have people like Joan Vesser, Beverly Jenkins.
Mm-hmm.
They have historical fiction that gets to the core of Black culture,
Yeah.
but it's in a fictional setting.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's, to me,
Mm-hmm.
that's what historical fiction is.
Mm-hmm.
You have the truth and you have the fiction.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter must be said in the historical fiction for
Mm-hmm.
it to be historical fiction. And that
Mm-hmm.
is just my opinion. So you
Mm-hmm.
do that with the Finnish mythology. I knew
Mm-hmm.
nothing about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm sitting here just researching the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and that historical fiction at its core will have you mentally doing gymnastics out
Mm.
here trying to figure out, oh my God, did this really happen?
Yeah. So yeah, the idea of like that readers could be reading it and be like, what parts of this are real? Like what parts of this are the
Mm-hmm.
history? What parts of this are the fantasy? And that if you can write a story that kind of comes alive for the reader, it
Mm-hmm.
all can feel like it happened, right? Like that's what the magic of the writing is. Like you can drop into my
Yeah.
hockey romance and feel like this is real. Like like people say my characters feel so real, like they feel like they could be my
Mm-hmm.
friends, right? And yeah, definitely
Yeah.
this idea of like this history, make this history come alive, even as we're weaving in these fantastical elements. But like you're
Mm.
saying, the root of it is this happened, pieces of it did, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
pieces of it
Pieces.
didn't, pieces of it didn't, but pieces of it did, right? And
But it makes people
it
think.
matters.
It makes
Yeah,
people think because a lot of the policies now are trying to make people forget.
yeah,
They're
totally.
trying to make people forget their history and rewrite it in the name of uh tyranny.
Yeah. One of the last
So,
things, yeah, one of the last acts that I did before I quit my job at the university was for the sake of my job security, my department chair told me I needed to remove all mention of the words race and racism from my syllabuses because I was working in Florida. And because under Ron DeSantis, he was doing his whole Stop Woke Act. He was doing all of the things to like prepare him to run for president. And so
mhm.
they outlawed teaching race and racism. And so for the sake of my job security, I had to remove those words from my syllabuses. My department chair was like, still teach them until they go so far as to be physically in our classrooms and policing us that way. Still teach it, but we can't let them know you're teaching it. And so I was
Mm.
just like, I had to like go back to my office. I cried at my desk as I was search and replacing the concept of racism from my syllabuses. And like, it's like, how do you teach modern African politics and not talk about racism? How do you teach the real history of genocide? I had a whole course, Politics of Genocide. How do you teach it? To your point, that they're trying to make us forget history or they're trying to erase it. It's like they're trying to erase the wing of the African American History Museum that talks about slavery. Like they want to remove it. And I'm just like, this can't happen. And so if books are the final bastion, if fantasy books are where we escape, where we protect that history, like it's never been more imperative that we are reading
Mm.
diverse authors, that we are going and we are buying their books before they remove them from the shelves. You know what I mean? Get your Tracy Dion before they take them off the shelves. It's crazy. It's crazy
Yeah.
where we're at of like, we have to tell these stories in whatever way we can.
Yeah.
We have to buy them. We have to buy them and we have to protect them, right? Take them off the shelves by
So,
buying it and protect it in your
so
house.
let me ask you about Florida
Yeah.
because I saw multiple videos when you was talking about you just didn't feel safe
Yeah.
and it was time to get your family out of there. So
Yeah.
let me ask, you left Florida due to its increasing hostile political environment, particularly
Yeah.
towards queer communities.
Mm-hmm.
How did that decision, leaving your home for your safety, affect your
Yeah.
identity, your creativity, and the types of stories you feel called to write?
Yeah. No, yeah, there were a lot of intersecting reasons why we felt like we needed to leave
Mm,
Florida. So the obviously there were the issues of the crackdown on anything related to queerness. There were laws that
mm,
they were passing or they were trying to pass
mm,
that were going to make it very difficult for me to work and feel like I could be living freely.
mm,
They Another big issue was the crackdowns they were doing on education and the lack of
mm,
support for education resources. As I mentioned, my child, we've been going through a multi-year process of getting him diagnosed with ADHD, dyslexia, and dysgraphia. And we had to
mhm,
move him schools. We had, it basically became clear he was not going to get the education he deserved while being in the state of
mm,
Florida. The public
mm,
school system was not going to provide him what he needed, and he deserved the chance to flourish, right? And I'm in
mm,
the incredibly privileged position as an author. All I need is Wi Fi access. So it became,
mm.
even though we loved Florida and we wanted to stay there, it just became like, why are we doing this? Why are we staying here
Yeah.
when we don't need to? We're in the privileged position that we can leave. And there were other issues. There were some family issues that were happening that was making things more difficult. One of the last things that happened while I was there in the last weeks before we left was a family member
Mm,
tried to break into my home in the night and basically held me hostage in my bathroom as they gaslit me for an hour, telling me my reality was not real. This was shortly after the election had happened. Because once the election result came in, we knew we wanted to leave Florida. We did not want to be in
mm,
Florida for the start of Trump's next term in office. So we knew we were going to be out of there by Jan 20.
mm,
We just wanted the fresh start. So yeah, one of the last things that happened was a family member that was very upset that we were leaving tried to break into my home and like accosted me for daring to want to leave to protect me and to protect my child, and told me
mm,
everything that I had been experiencing wasn't happening. They gaslit me hard. And so it was like, now I'm really, really, really going. Like now I'm going even faster and I'm going further. So
this is,
we've relocated now to Washington State. And we're
mm,
very happy here, and the kids thriving in the new school system. But it's a lot. It's a lot to feel like I grew up in a very I grew up in a family where public service was everything. Like everyone in my
mm,
family is military on both sides of the ladder. It's like you love your country and you serve your country in whatever way you're able to.
mm,
Um, and for me, it's just been a life journey with the education that I've had, with the experiences
mhm,
that I've had. It's been a life journey of me kind of falling out of love with my country and
mm.
seeing it for what it really is,
Yeah.
and seeing it for the violence that it's done and continues to
Yeah.
do. And
Mhm,
I see all the moles and I see all the scars and I see all
mhm.
the violence. And it's been tough, but especially when family is not supportive, because family is still very
Yeah.
much in the mindset of this is the best country in the world. What are you talking about? And it's like it's
Yeah.
really, really, it's really not.
Mhm.
Um, but that's tough to feel like you're having to protect yourself even from
Yeah.
members of your own family. Mm,
So
yeah,
some
fun
readers who
times.
support restrictive policies
Yeah.
have felt excluded from your work. How do you respond to that while still standing firmly in your truth?
Yeah. So for me, it has never been about restricting readers from accessing the books themselves. I've tried to be very clear about that, of like
Mm.
the books, I can't control it. Like my books are
Yeah.
in like 150 territories. They're in like 14 languages and counting. I am not going
Mm.
around policing who reads my books. What I have
Mhm.
been very, I don't know, bulldogish about has been my fandom spaces, because I just
Mhm.
had really the tipping point for me was that family member coming into my
Mhm.
own personal space, trying to break into my home and pushing the Trump agenda in my face in my own home, as I tried to keep them quiet so as not to wake my sleeping child, right? That really pushed me that much further over the edge. If I wasn't already vocal about these things, which I was, it was enough of me having readers, MAGA readers, disrespecting my fandom spaces. They come into my Facebook group, or I've been very lucky with my Patreon thus far. That was one of the reasons I created the Patreon, was because I felt like maybe if there's a paywall that will that much more limit who gets to come into my face and what kind of opinions they're going to come with. Like, if you hate me, you're not going to pay for the pleasure of telling me to my face in a Patreon.
Yeah.
So it really was, I just got my buttons pushed enough that I was like, here's the deal. In the Emily verse, we start and we end with basic respect for human rights. If you can't hurdle that bar, you don't get access to me. It's not about my books.
Yeah.
My books are public access. You can find them in thrift stores, on the internet, wherever. It's about accessing me and my fandom. So you don't get to come into my space and say heinous things that upset my readers, that have me woken up at 5 a.m. because my Facebook administrator is like, this is popping off. I have blocked them, but I need you to know that this is it went this far before I caught it, that kind of thing. It's just like, get out of here. I reserve the right in my private fandom spaces to remove you if you're not going to respect basic human rights and human decency. If you're not going to respect queer joy and queer stories, if you're going to fetishize queer content, if you're going to tell me to shut up and dribble, if you're going to tell me in my own face and space what I'm allowed to do, So it's like, no.
I get that. I truly get that. And the one thing I hate when it comes to a lot of times with the reading community across the board is people don't understand boundaries.
Yeah.
They take the stories that you write and assume that they know you as the individual, as the person. They take you being an author and just saying, because you are an author, you're a public figure. So we have to write because we bought your book that we can say, do, and act any type of way. And I feel like people don't understand boundaries because they don't even have boundaries for themselves. So they take it out on you guys. And it's unfortunate, but it happens so much in your Facebook groups, in your and that's why I am leery of Facebook groups, because my God, they're like crazy, insane over characters
you have
that
to
are
have good
fictional.
administrators. I know, you've got to have good administrators, and I think you really can build the right kind of culture in your fandom spaces. We can probably both list at least 5 fandoms that we don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole, right? And they've done that to themselves. Whether the authors can go a long way to setting the tone for their fandom spaces, even if you're not going to be active in it. I'm not all that active in my Facebook group, but I was very active in the beginning and I set the tone. And I think too many authors, especially once they get big enough, they just kind of fade away. And I get why, because you don't want to be in the position that I've been in, where you have people giving death threats and burning your books and throwing them away and, coming to your face and calling you a cunt, all these things. Like, you don't want that, obviously. But it means that not only do they not stand up against this bad behavior, it's kind of gets to a point where it's like they don't stand up for anything. And it's like, then what's the point? Is the money that worth it to you? Like, is the money that worth it? Or is being as broadly likable by as large a reader base as possible, is that what you want? Like, When you're dying, are you going to look back and be like, that was worth it? Me saying nothing was worth it. Like when you could have so much power and you could move the needle and you could change society with your voice,
Les Les Brown, a motivational speaker, he says, there was a man who was surrounded by regrets. He was dying and he was surrounded by his regrets. Who was surrounded by regrets. He was dying and he was surrounded by his regrets. No. So it's always good to speak up now instead of waiting until it's the last breath and say, I wish I would have. I could have.
I wish I
didn't.
could have. Yeah, I
Type
could have
deal.
done something. Yeah. Yeah. When you think of some of these white women authors, the power they have. And it's like do they even know it? Do you even know? For me, being on the margins as I am, for me to have had the kind of shake-up moment where millions of people were talking about my content, right? It went across all the platforms. It went like wildfire. And I'm practically a nobody. You know what I mean? Like I'm so new to this field. Like the most cited thing of people when they saw my content was, I've literally never heard of you. Who are you? I've never heard of you, but they've heard of these other so it's like these other white women, they have so much power and they're doing fuck all with it. And it's so disappointing, especially when I know that they'll come up to me in the shadows and tell me I'm brave. And it's just like, what world we could live in? What could this world look like?
Yes.
If the white people with power that could use it for good would just say something. Just once. You know what I mean? Like, just say something. Just once. Just try it. Just try it. Just try it. It's maddening.
Yeah. I'm going to ask one last question about Florida, and then I'm going to wrap it up with the last few questions so I can get you out of here and I can go eat because my stomach is touching my back. But Florida and other states are enacting policies that ban books, censor queer stories, criminalize bodily autonomy in books. How can authors and readers fight back against these policies, especially in the romance space, which is already scrutinized?
Yeah, well, I think we have to just keep telling the stories the way that we're telling them. I feel like nothing was more gratifying than at the same time the Florida House was pushing to vote on more anti-LGBT legislation. My queer polyamorous hockey romance set in Florida was at the top of the Amazon charts, and it stayed there for 16 weeks. And so it's this feeling of it's like the truth will out. Like what citizens really want, the kind of world they want to live in, the legal system they want to live under, right? Because that was a big thing that I got pushed back with, of people being like, well, you just alienated half your reader base. That is BS bananas malarkey. Like, because if you actually break down voting in this country and you break down the percentages of who voted for Trump versus who voted for Kamala versus who didn't vote, right? Over a third of this country couldn't be bothered to vote at all. So it's not that half of the country believes in the Republican administrations and what they want. We're just not fucking voting. We're not voting. And if people would vote, we would see the difference. We would see, like, if everyone who could vote did vote, Republicans would never win another election. And that is
Mm,
straight facts because their policies are not popular. But we have
mm-hmm,
such a degree of voter suppression in this country, right? They might win, I should say, they might win state elections. They would never win another presidency. They would never win
mm,
control in the House and Senate again. But we have
mm,
so much voter suppression in this country, and then we have such apathy when it comes to voting. So the fact that a vote as polarized as Trump or Kamala still kept over a third of our voting population on the couch is
mm,
ludicrous, right? And
mm,
so for people to be like, they think they're in the majority, and so winning a landslide, like winning a landslide election. Number one, they didn't. It was not a landslide. And in terms of who actually voted, like having 30% of a population, 34% of a population, or whatever it was, vote you in, that's
mm,
not a majority.
mm-hmm.
More people want to read Queer Joy and a hockey romance than they want to have restrictive LGBT measures in place in Florida, right? Like,
Mm,
but you have to vote. You have to
mm-hmm,
know when to vote, you have to know where to vote, and you have to vote at every election,
mm,
every turn, because where these laws are happening is at the state level. They're
mm-hmm.
happening at the state level, and they're moving up. So if you are not voting for your state representatives, then we're losing. Like, we're going to
Yeah.
have more restrictive measures in place for abortion rights. They're going to keep
Mm-hmm,
taking LGBT rights away. They're going to keep policing us. They're going to police drag shows to children in libraries. They're going to call what we write porn, and they're going to
mm-hmm,
restrict it. Like, they keep winning, but they're only winning because we're not fighting back. You know what I
mm,
mean? And the way that because the way to win is to vote so that you have the power.
mm-hmm.
Where are we? You know?
Yeah.
It's mad.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got on a soapbox there, but
You're
voter
fine.
suppression
You're
in this country
fine.
is unmatched. Yeah.
It really is. So, without giving too much away, okay?
Yeah.
What can you tease about your
Mm-hmm.
upcoming projects? Is there a
Yes.
new world,
Yes.
couples, or trope
Mm-hmm.
you're obsessed with lately?
Yes. So the things that I can tease Pucking Strong drops in August. That is book 4 in the hockey romance series. So that is Teddy and Henrik's book. It is a sweet, slow burning, angsty, friends to lovers romance. There's some marriage of convenience in there. It's delicious. It's
Hmm.
interracial. Teddy is Black as well. It's a lot of fun. You're going to get anxiety rep, demisexuality rep, all the great things. So that comes in August. I'm very excited about that one. And then I'm currently working on book 2 because North is a duology. So the
Mm,
second book there is called South is the Sea. So it's North is the night, South is the sea. And I'm almost done with my next draft of South. I'll be sending that off to
mm,
editors. So we'll probably expect South is the Sea. And I'm almost done with my next draft of South. I'll be sending that off to
mm.
editors. So we'll probably expect that to be very good and finish it now. And then
Yeah.
the thing that I can do, like an exclusive for our TikTok. Um, I just sold I just sold a project to a Big Five publisher. It's a 3 book trilogy. And it's my entry into paranormal romance. So it's like my love letter to like True Blood, Practical Magic, Charmed, all of the witchy goodness, supernaturals. It's going to be an MMF, right? So it's like a Big Five publisher is publishing my queer polyamorous witch book. I'm so excited. um, it
Oh shit.
features it features a wraith, a male witch, and the mortal who like captures their hearts. So it's really fun. But yeah,
A
that's coming.
race?
That should be
Not a
coming
lot of
next year.
people write about race.
I know. So it's kind of like I don't know if it's paranormal, but I don't know if a
Hmm.
wraith counts as a monster. Um,
Sort of, kind of.
or is it
Sort
more
of, kind of.
paranormal?
I
Sort
think
of,
a race
kind
is
of.
more
Well, because like with the
paranormal.
like, yeah, So we'll have the wraith, and because I think the big thing with the spicy scenes is like, does the spice happen when they're in their monsterly form or when they're out of it? And so in this, like, it'll be both. Like he has magic he can use to like look like a person, but then he also can look like a wraith. And so like it's basically like my love for shadow daddies, and like literal shadows. Like it's gonna be fun. We're gonna have so much fun.
Oh,
But yeah,
is
so
there a
that's coming.
date or
So
or or
it
or
will probably be like summer fall of next year is the plan,
okay.
um, for that to release. But we should be able to announce that the deal went through pretty soon here because we're wanting to really like get the ball rolling. So we hopefully will announce that the deal went through soon.
Oh my
And then
God.
yeah, that's what I'm obsessed with right now. That's like my shiny object right now. I've been listening.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I've been listening to the playlists, and I'm just like, I want to write this book so bad. It's a lot of fun.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, of all the genres you've written, such as romance, historical, omniverse, fantasy, which
Yeah.
one of these feel most at home, and which one showcases the deepest version of your personality?
I think my favorite book answers all those questions. My favorite book that I have written is Whiskey and Sin. I think
Mm,
Whiskey and Sin is like the cleanest book I have in terms of craft as well. Of like, it's a story that is really contained, beginning, middle, and end. It has the angst, it has the romance. It's one of my all-time favorite genres, which is Omegaverse. I think Omegaverse is so friendly. It's so queer friendly.
mm-hmm.
It was really a relief for me because in my mind, in an Omegaverse, everyone is pan until told otherwise. And I love
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of world, right? Because it's not
yeah.
about what you are on the outside. It's about the
Mhm.
connection I have to you are my omega, right? Or you are my alpha, the
Yeah.
scent connection, which has nothing to do with the outside. And I love that,
Mhm.
the queer little heart patterns in me of it doesn't matter what you look
Mm,
like. I'm going to connect with you on a soul level,
yeah.
and accept whatever that comes with. Like whatever package that soul comes in, I love it.
Hmm.
And I can't get enough of it,
Yeah.
you know? So I love Omegaverse.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite book that I've written. It's the one that I go back as a reader and enjoy to read the
Mhm.
most, would be Whiskey and Sin. And I would love at some point.
Mm,
Omegaverse is, I get asked all the time when I'll write another. I would love to. It's really oversaturated. It kind of seems like there's like 10 new ones every day. Um,
mhm,
it's a pretty oversaturated market. So my focus hasn't been there recently.
mhm,
Um, but I do love it. I love it as a reader and I do
mm.
love it as an author. So,
Okay.
Omegaverse.
Do you see yourself as a crossover author, someone who exists in both mainstream circles and niche indie communities?
Yeah, I would like to. I would really like to feel like as I've started to sell more projects to the traditional publishing space,
Mhm,
but I see myself as a hybrid. I see so
mm,
deeply the benefit of both spaces. I really want to
mhm,
keep trying to hold on to my fandom as an indie authors have such a magic when they
mhm,
create true fandom spaces, right? Like a lot of traditional authors, they have readerships and they have really loyal
mhm,
readerships, but it's the rare traditional author that really tries to build a fandom, like a true sense of
mm,
fandom. Whereas indie authors are out here crushing it on the daily. That's like we know the only way to get our books seen and to get them into the most hands is to obsess the readers, give them something to obsess about, give them a fandom, give them a community, give them friendship, give them merch, give them,
mm,
all these things. So I was really strategic at the beginning of building my brand that I didn't just want loyal readers. I wanted fans. I wanted people that would travel across a continent to see me. I wanted them to, tattoo my name on their books or like my characters' names on the books, not my name, that would be weird, but like my words, whatever. Um, so yeah, being really purposeful about wanting to build out a
mm,
fandom and have it feel like I'm in it and I'm active,
Mm.
because too often, like I was saying, the author just starts to fade away. Like the bigger the author gets, the more untouchable they start to feel. They just kind of cocoon
Exactly.
themselves off, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't want that. I want to feel like I'm still here and I'm still me and I talk about my work and I talk about politics and life and the living of it. Um,
Mm.
I don't want to just disappear into a little isolation corner where I count my
Yeah.
money. Like that just feels so ugh, to me. Um, so I like the balance that I've struck right now of like
Mm.
I have traditional projects, I have indie projects. I see the benefit of both spaces. I
Mm.
100% want to continue championing indie authors. Like I'll be going on tour for Strong, and like 90% of the authors that I'll be touring with, they're indie. They're not trad. But I was
Mm.
purposeful of like, I gave the list to my publicist and was like, here is their contact info. I want them to be my conversation partner. Like make it happen.
Mm.
But you
Mm.
have to do that. You have to advocate, and you
Mm.
have to, if I get the door open, I'm going to bring people in
Mm.
with me, you know?
Yeah.
I think too often what you're seeing is indie authors are getting in through the door and then they're just communing with whoever's also inside the building, you know?
Mm.
And for me, it's like, no. Like, if I get a single foot wedged into this door, I will be holding it
Mm.
open and I'm going to pull in as
Mm.
many people behind me as I can, you know?
I like
Um,
that. I like that.
which I think is another form of allyship, right? Another form
Yeah.
of important allyship is like bring debut authors, bring non white authors, bring marginalized, bring queer authors, make them be your in conversation partner. If you're already a bestseller, why do you need to host an event with another bestseller? Like, you clearly have readerships that they're going to read your books. Like, hold
Mm.
that door open. Bring in people whose lives you could change, whose careers you could
Mm.
make, who's, you know, like that I
Yeah.
feel like to me is so much more meaningful.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what I'm trying to do and trying to model. I think it's another form of allyship of like,
It
I have my
is. It
platform, I'm
is.
doing okay. If I can bring you with me, that's what I'm going to try and do.
It is. So, where can readers find your books, merch, or bonus content?
Yeah.
Are there any upcoming book signings, book tours, or conventions you're especially excited about?
Yeah. So you can find me online here. I'm active on TikTok and I'm active on Instagram. Linked in my bio, you can find all my socials. So whether you just want basic info off my website, you want to follow my Spotify accounts and like see the playlist for
Mm.
my books, all that's there. I do have a Shopify, so I have a ton of merch available through my Shopify. I have everything from like
Mm.
hats, tumblers, shirts, stickers, art prints, all kinds of stuff. And that's been fun. And then I do have a Facebook group that there's chat rooms you can join. There's just the main thread page. I recently started a Patreon, and that's been a lot of fun too. I do provide some content that's like free for all, but
Mm.
as the tiers get higher, there's content that gets put behind paywalls. So like things like some bonus content, spicy art, spicy stories, that kind of thing. That's all going to be over on the Patreon. But yeah, I'm kind of around. I'm around and present. My DMs are shut pretty much everywhere right now, but you can email me, and me and my PA, we do go through the emails, and I do respond. That's how we got connected, right? Was through the
Yeah.
email. Um, but yeah, so I'm not as active as I was in DMs, just kind of for my sanity, because
Yeah, I
it
can
gets to be a lot.
understand.
Yeah,
So,
but the
what are
email
your
is always open.
preferred what are your preferred you said they can email you. Is there any other way that
Hmm.
readers can connect with you, and where can folks follow your journey as far as purchasing your books,
Yeah,
as far as
yeah.
seeing you speak live?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of conventions on the docket. I'll be at Queer and Quills in Portland, And I was just like, in May. It's already May. My gosh, this year is getting away from me. It's already
It's
May.
flying by.
So you can see me. You can see me this month. I'll be at Queer and Quills in Portland. I'll be at, this isn't until October, but I'll be at Book Harvest. That's in Chicago. I should be at BB4E, which is going to be in Vancouver. I believe that one's in July. And then I am about to announce, like within the next like week, I'm about to announce one mini tour, which is going to be it's going to be Pacific Northwest only for Beautiful Things, which is my Regency. My publisher is re-releasing my Regency books, like new covers, sprayed edges. They're really pretty. So that'll be in July. So look out for end of July. I'll do mini tour in Pacific Northwest. Then at the end of August, again, I'll be announcing it in like a week. But at the end of August, I'm doing like a 13 city cross country tour for Strong. Prepare yourselves. I will be, and these are all going to be live events, and I will have in conversation partners for almost all of them. And like I said, it's a range from #1 New York Times bestsellers to debut indie authors. It's a big range of authors that I'm bringing on tour with me. So it's going to be like 13 cities, everywhere from like Utah into Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania has been the big one. I've got a lot of fans in Pennsylvania that have been like, come here or be square. Pennsylvania, Maryland, DC, West Virginia. I'm going to be around Vermont. So yeah, we're going to have lots of stops on that tour. So I'll be announcing both of those in like the next week or so. And I'll try and post that everywhere, but there'll be tickets available, you know, that kind of thing, but for all of those in-person events. So
I just want to put my hat in the ring. If you ever come to Chicago and you want someone to be on the panel to ask questions, I would love to meet you in person and ask you questions face to face about your books.
Oh, absolutely. So we're looking at, I will definitely keep that in mind. We're looking at doing a panel because Book Harvest is like the tickets are already sold for that. I don't know. Will you be, did you hear about Book Harvest or will you be there?
I did, but by the time I got to it, it was,
sold out. You keep an eye on it because people will tend to like last minute, they'll sell off tickets and stuff. But we're trying to put together a sports romance panel that will happen outside of the event. So for readers that don't make it, so it would probably be in Naperville, I think is where we're thinking of doing it. There's an indie bookstore there to partner with, and they often can like get us auditorium access, is what my publicist said. But so it would be hockey romance authors, but the whole point of the panel would be diverse hockey romance authors. So I'm really excited. I've already gotten 2 yeses. And we did ask someone to moderate, but I can confirm if they have said yes. And if they haven't, if you're interested, then yes.
Absolutely.
I'll be back to Chicago. So yeah. Or I'll give you the deets anyway. You can show up. Like
True. Yes.
Yeah. So that should be a lot of fun. And that'll be in October. So.
Okay. So Emily, this has been like amazing talking to you, and thank you for coming on and being so open. And I just want to tell everybody, y'all, if you haven't already, go pick up Pucking Around. Whiskey and Sin. The North is the Night, and everything else Emily has cooking up or has cooked up. Follow her online. Support queer authors, support BIPOC authors, support POC authors. Remember, today is National Black Author Day. We as Black, POC, and queer, we deserve stories that love us back. Point blank, period.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you. Is there anything you like to say before I get into my housekeeping, but let you go?
No, this has been wonderful. Thanks so much for the invite. I've loved too seeing like the positivity in the community here, as I've seen the comment section has been so great this whole time around. I saw a couple of people that I'm familiar with, right? People that I know that popped in and were able to watch part of this. So yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for the thoughtful questions. My gosh, sometimes you do lives and you don't know what to expect or like what kind of questions they'll be. Your
Yeah.
questions were so thoughtful, and they're gonna stay with me. Like I learned things about me and my craft through the questions that you asked, which is always like such a gift, right? It's really great to be challenged with a question that you're like, oh, I learned something today about me. Yeah. so that's really great. But yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. And hopefully we can do it again. Maybe when the paranormal books are out, or when South as the Sea is out and you get a chance to read that, we can do it again.
I love paranormal. I love anything paranormal. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. As well as the second book and the duet.
I gotta finish it. I'm like the energy, like I'm so close. And you know how it's like sometimes it's like you start to peter out of like you're running that marathon and you're like at mile 21 and you're like there's only 3 left to go, but I don't think I can make it. Sometimes it's like you start to peter out of like you're running that marathon and you're like at mile 21 and you're like there's only 3 left to go, but I don't think I can make it. Get so close. I want to finish this draft and get it done. Yeah. Okay. Wish me luck.
I do, because I love the story. So I'm gonna let you go, and if you guys would like to stick around, you'll get to hear about Black readers who own businesses and book events that are happening this year and next year. So stick around so you can support those people. So once again, thank you so much. I will be sending you an email with some authors, some bookstores, and just a thank you for taking the time out to speak with me.
Yeah. No, that's so great. I love it, because I always share that kind of stuff with in my spaces too. I'll share it in my Patreon, I'll share it in my Facebook group, all that fun stuff. So thanks so much. Have a lovely rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.